Oh, choppy today. Hey, hello. Welcome everybody to the workshop. And immediately, the fundraiser one, it's broken. And we will fix that, but it is currently broken. So you kind of do a very quick on the fly little fix. 10, 20, 45, 45, 55, 65, 80, 90. Okay, so it should be £190 is in there. Let's just do a really quick, we'll do a little text thing, okay? Okay, what did I say it was? 95? Wow. This is how much we have raised. Good, excellent, wonderful. Oh, that is white. White is not going to be a useful color. Let's do black. Color black. Okay. All right, now you can see how much money we have raised. Can I give it a white background? Maybe. That way we can, or a grey background. Let's find out. Oh, I can. Okay. Let's just select color. We want this color here. As our background opacity turns up. And boom. Okay, now you can see. Look. Haha. She's done it. We have a manually controlled goal now. Hey, but at least it works. Okay, amazing. All right. Brilliant. Welcome to a voice workshop, everybody. If you don't know already, for the month of Pride, we're doing one of these every single week. Normally it's a 4-weekly thing. We're doing it every week right now. And we have some things that are hidden that are not supposed to be hidden. Let's get that logo back. What is this? Let's get that back. What is this? That does nothing. Okay, yes, so welcome to the currently weekly workshop for Pride. And during this period, we're using this opportunity to raise money for Owen Trans Network. We have a fundraising scheme. So it's a community fund for underprivileged youths that can't afford their own voice lessons, and we pay for their voice lessons basically. So all of this month, every Ko-fi donation gets added to the pot, and every membership gets added to the pot and doubled. Okay. So for example, if you sign up as a £25 member, then £50 gets added. Thank you very much for those people. I'm pretty sure I've done my maths wrong. Let me do a real quick double check. Okay, it should be 50. You get back there. Should be 50 plus 20. So that's 70 plus. Oh, I've done this totally wrong. 70, 90, 100, 150, 170, 170, 180. 190. I don't know how I messed that up before. Let's fix that real quick. You guys have done way better than that. You guys have raised so far £190 to help fund lessons for students. The goal is £700 because that fully funds somebody's lessons. They get all of their, start to finish, their entire thing will be paid for, assuming about average lesson times. With £700. So, yeah. No, that would be 2 people, I think, actually. I'd have to redo the maths. I think that would be 2 students fully funded, which would be mint. Thank you to people that have supported so far. And if you'd like to help underprivileged trans youth, then send some stuff over. Ko-fi link is below. All right, let's get into things properly. So, welcome to the Trans Network Voice Modification Workshop. Some quick rules and etiquette for people in the various chats. We have Trans Voice, we have Trans Network, and we have a YouTube chat. So very quickly, just please be respectful of the learning environment. We try to avoid keep your mics muted for when we're going over the lecture portion. Avoid random shout outs and stuff. Try to be really respectful of just the other people here. I don't want any fights breaking out in any of the chats. I don't want your personal beef. Right now, we're focused on voice. And let's keep things on topic. So I love really active chats. I really, really encourage active chats, but we'll try and keep it on topic. So ask questions about what you're hearing, engage with the content, use this to learn. But now's not the time to chit chat about I have no idea what's happening in the world anymore. The UFC, that's just happened, right? Now's not the time to chit chat about the UFC. There you go. Yeah, let's talk about voice. But I should add a little fourth thing here. It's not really a rule, but more like an etiquette thing. Get involved in the chat. Ask your questions, or let me know, hey, yeah, if I say hey, is everyone following? Then let me know, are you following, or do you need me to go back over something? So I really don't want anyone to be left behind. And it's just really helpful for me to know how this is coming across, and if everything's landing okay. So yeah, really active chats really, really help me out, and they help everybody else out. So yeah, I wanna hear you guys. I wanna be reading what you have to say. I do play favorites, okay? So if you're active in the chat, I will prioritize you, right? Okay, let's keep going. So, who am I? My name is Sarah. I am the owner of and dedicated voice coach over in Trans Network. So we have the youtube.com/transnetwork, trans_network, which is where this is being live streamed to right now. We have the Discord, which is a link there, there's a link below. There's if you're watching on YouTube, in the description right now. And if you are over in a different Discord, then click on the user that I'm, so it would be Zara's12. Click on Zara's12, look into the bio, there'll be a little link to the Discord if you want it. And of course we have the Ko-fi, so if you want to help with our fundraiser, then head over to the Ko-fi. Celebrate Pride, let's do some good. Okay, yeah, I've been hosting workshops since August 2024, teaching since October 2024. And yeah, if you're looking for lessons with me, then you head over to my Discord. Current prices are soon to be changing for new signups, but right now they are £35 for private lessons and £15 for the public lessons. Okay, alrighty. So really important. What am I not? Okay, I am not your doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I've got no medical qualifications. None of what I do is medical care. Okay, right now it's really important. So that means I can't treat you of anything. I can't give you any medical advice. I certainly can't diagnose you with anything. Closest we could ever get to something like that is if I hear your voice, maybe you come to lessons, or I hear you in one of the workshops, maybe somebody's voice I hear, or maybe they describe something and I'm ooh, that sounds that sounds quite similar to symptoms of a particular medical issue. I might just let you know that oh, that sounds like it could be related to this. Maybe you should speak to your doctor about that. But that doesn't mean anything more than your friend telling you, oh, maybe speak to a doctor about that. I'm not giving you some specialist opinion. I'm just a lady on the internet. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk voice. First of all, maintaining your vocal health is really important, and we do want to be taking this seriously, okay? So things to be doing, you'll see me doing it the entire time during this workshop. Oh, I love water. Stay hydrated. It's really, really important. Your body generally needs fluids. We're all pretty aware of this by now. But our voice particularly needs fluids. It does quite a lot for us. It will help you with mobility of your vocal tract. So doing all things is easier, because just all of movement is easier when it comes to your vocal tract if we are properly hydrated. Okay? So literally just the doing of anything is easier. And like the ranges of what you can do is going to be increased because just things can move more easily. They're a bit more nimble when they're hydrated. Okay. Think of like if you get like a plant, if it's like nice and hydrated and it's like nice and plump, you'll move around, it'll bend, no problem. It'll do everything. You can manipulate it however you want. But when it's all dry, it'll like snap, and we don't want that. Yeah. So stay nice and hydrated. It also helps regulate your mucus production. Every hole in your body produces mucus. It's just how your body's how it keeps out like dirt and pollen, bacteria, pathogens, just the stuff that's in the air, dust, and stops it, impacting your body. And you need that to be like, you don't want it to be too much, you don't want it to be too little, and hydration just keeps things nice and regulated there. So that's, another benefit of it. And lastly, if we don't stay properly hydrated, things start to desiccate a little bit and we become more prone to injury and irritation. Okay, so hydration is really important. You want to be looking at like 2.5 liters a day. For the girlies on spironolactone, the androgen blocker, anti-androgen, you might have to increase that a bit because spironolactone is a pretty strong diuretic. So you want to be looking more towards like 3 liters a day. Okay. Okie dokie. So next, staying nice and relaxed. This is really, really important. And it is like probably the biggest beginner mistake I run into. Trying to like force your body into some uncomfortable position, trying to like put lots of physical force into your voice, trying to do something that doesn't feel natural. All of that is what we want to avoid. It will produce weird sounds, and your voice won't sound how you want it to sound. It'll sound unnatural, odd, which for most of us isn't what we're going for. We're trying to sound nice and natural. So it's not going to give you the sound you want, and it also makes us more prone to injury, more prone to exhaustion, and generally just more prone to like not being able to use our voice properly. So keep things nice and relaxed. All of what we're going to be doing, all of voice work, it doesn't really feel any different to how it's ever felt. Your voice, in terms of like your usage of your voice right now, none of that bit is actually going to change. You're still going to do all of that. We're just going to add some things on top of that. Okay, so nothing's going to change, and nothing should feel different. You should be able to talk totally naturally. Nothing should be impeded at all, and there should be no physical like effort going into it. Okay, it should be like very, very gentle, very easy, physically speaking. Mentally, it's going to be a huge task. Okay, but let's not like undersell the difficulty of it. Like this is a big undertaking. Okay, very much marathon, not a sprint. We're going to be learning this for a long time, but it's learning this. Okay, it's not training our body or changing our body or like forcing something. Yeah, physically, right now, you already can do pretty much any voice you've ever heard. You just don't have the precision and the knowledge of how to do it. It's just like right now, everybody listening or everybody in the future watching on YouTube, you can already play the guitar. You can play any guitar riff you've ever heard, unless you have like, I don't know, some practice fingers or something. You can already play them. You just don't know how yet. But like your body's capable of it. It's a skill thing. It's not a body thing. Yeah, and it's the same with voice. We're all capable of like any voice we've ever heard. Like it's crazy how capable the human voice is, and like every like parameter, we can do it more than you've ever heard before. Like we can hit higher pitches than you ever hear somebody speak out. We can hit lower pitches than you ever hear somebody speak out. We can hit this and that. Everything we can do is way outside the bounds of what you ever normally hear in a voice, which means any normal voice that you hear, or just any voice you hear, is like something that you already can do. Yeah, because we don't actually use much of our vocal ability when we're talking. Like what we can do is way beyond what we ever actually do. Because our voices are nuts. We're so humans are awesome. It's really cool. But yeah, super digressing there. Stay nice and relaxed, okay? That's really, really important. And it helps us avoid injury as well. Warm-ups, we'll be going over how to do warm-ups soon. I'm really really thirsty today for some reason. We'll go over warm-ups if you decide time. But they're going to be really important. They're not going to do anything to your voice per se. It's more about maintaining vocal health. So they're not going to change the quality of your voice. But this is one where we're increasing blood flow, which means all of that hydration, that's going to get to our vocal tract. Really helpful. It's going to warm things up, which makes them more flexible, more nimble. It's going to make you less prone to injury. It's think about warm-ups in any exercise you ever do. All of those benefits, it's the same benefits. It's just moving your body. Bodies move better when they're warmed up. Muscles work better when they're warmed up. They have more blood flow, they have more access to everything, and they're more flexible. That's the same thing with your voice. More flexible means you can do more, and you can do it more safely. So yeah, warm up, really good. You should do it. And lastly, have some fun with this. This is like in a lot of things with transition, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And unfortunately, this is one where it's a marathon and it also requires a lot of you. HRT, while the transition can be a very distressing process that takes ages and it can be very frustrating, you don't have to do anything. You just take your medication and wait for stuff to happen. This isn't like that. This is, you have to be putting in all the work constantly, and results only come when you've put the work in. And so that can just be a lot, So I really, really encourage, actively look for fun. Actively find ways to make this as fun as possible and as enjoyable as possible, so that helps you engage more, You'll learn faster, and it will be less intimidating and less overbearing, But you're going to be doing this for a while. You may as well enjoy it. Yeah. So take that as an actual active thing that you want to be participating in. You want to actively be looking for fun, actively making this as enjoyable as you can. Yeah. Because it'll help you out. Yeah. I know that having fun is something that's oh yeah, and have fun, but actually take that quite seriously. Really, really engage with how can I make this as enjoyable as possible. Genuinely really important. Okay. All right, things to avoid. These ones kind of obvious. It's like what I was saying with King Relax. It's the flip side of that. Okay, we want to really avoid straining your voice. If you're straining and putting a ton of effort, definitely not going to lead to a voice you want. You're just going to end up sounding like this, or even you might find that you've got a muscle and you're squeezing really tight, and it might not even be a muscle that actually affects your voice. And this is something I run into all the time with students. It's a really, really common thing to mess up. You should never be squeezing anything. You should never really be activating a muscle in a really strong way. Okay, no big strong things. All right. For a number of reasons. One of them is humans don't control their bodies like that. We don't have the level of proprioception to consciously think, this muscle here, I'm going to do something with it. Okay? Or at least you can do that, but you can't do large tasks with that. And especially if you got an area you can tense your bicep because there's just one big muscle right there, and that's it. It's just this one big muscle. Closest thing is all the way up the other side of your arm where you have your tricep. And again, big muscles. When we're talking here, these muscles are way smaller, and there's a lot of them in this area. Your neck has so many different muscles in it. It's absurd how many muscles there are, and they're really small, and there is no way you can pick them apart. Just humans can't do that. It's not something we're built for. It's not how we control our bodies. So you should all have a drink with you right now. Take a little drink. How'd you do that? How did you swallow it? How did you pick it up? What did you do with your hand to pick the bottle up? You probably don't know that well. Maybe you can tell, I guess I put my hand around it and I closed my fingers. That's a bit of a loose description. I probably don't know what muscles you used or even know how the hand works in terms of tendons and stuff. I know I don't. I know the fingers don't have muscles; they have tendons, and I know in the hand there's some muscles that does stuff with attendance, and that's about as much as I know. I even know, I don't know how I grab things, but I can still grab things. And that's, your voice is the same, okay? So don't try to control, don't try to oh, I'm going to squeeze this muscle. I'm going to try to control my throat. I'm going to try to control the different parts. You can't do that. Nobody can do that. It's not possible. What you need to do is focus on the sound, and we'll talk about that later, okay? But importantly, don't put physical effort in. Don't strain. Don't squeeze, okay? Really, really bad. That's going to be very high risk of injuries, and it's definitely not going to make the sound you want, okay? Pain and discomfort, obviously, we don't want that. We definitely don't want your voice to hurt to use. There is the old adage of no pain, no gain, and it does not apply here, okay? Pain is loss here. If it hurts to do, it's sending you backwards, okay? Because nothing we're going to be doing hurts at all. My usage of my voice right now is really, really easy. I'm putting zero effort in at all. If I was to switch things over to here, I'm putting zero effort in at all. No, I barely even, I have to really focus to even, be able to feel that anything happened. I can hear that it's happened, and that's how I'm controlling this with the sound. But, physically speaking, it's so little, okay? So yeah, pain, discomfort, do not push through pain. If your body is in pain, it's telling you something's wrong, all right? And this bit's really important. It's probably the most important thing in this segment. Pain, discomfort, you're either about to do something wrong that could injure you, or you are doing something and are currently injuring yourself, okay? Now, vocal injury isn't that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. Just means, you've hurt yourself, you've made a little scratch, and you just need to take the day off and let it heal. Or maybe take a week off if you've gone really crazy. We've all injured our voices many times and had a great time doing it. Whenever we've gone to a concert or a sports game or anything, we've yelled loads, we had an amazing time, and our voice is just gone the next day. It's because it's a bit battered, it's a bit injured, and it will just heal, and it's not a big deal. That said, we're talking about voice practice and something we're going to be doing every single day, multiple times a day. And if you're injuring yourself on that frequency, that's a much, much bigger problem, okay? If you ignore the pain and you just keep pushing through, what eventually is going to happen is that where your body's trying to heal, it's having to heal over and over and over, repeated injuries. We can have scar tissue starting to form, not good. That just stays there. And if we really keep at it, we really just caution to the wind, pushing through the pain, doing everything that we shouldn't be doing, eventually you can have these nodes that form, these little lumps of tissue, and that can expand, and that can become quite a big problem for you, and they have to be removed surgically, okay? I've never had a student have that happen. I don't want any of you to be the first, okay? So take that seriously, all right? If it hurts, stop. Come speak to me. I'll help you, okay? Pain and discomfort, you are doing something wrong. In 100% of the time, if it hurts, if it's uncomfortable, if it's difficult, it is incorrect, okay? In every single case, okay? It should never, ever hurt. So if that's happening, come to me, okay? I'm here. I will help you, okay? Yeah. Okay, all right. And lastly, tension. So if you feel a muscle tensing up, it is not meant to. Like I said, this should feel really easy and comfortable to do. All right. How do you voice? Okay, how does your voice work? Just a little bit of just some basics we can use to then apply this and understand sort of how we're going to be doing all this and what's going on. So we have a really basic model that's really, really useful, especially for gender affirming voice stuff. It just so perfectly lays everything out. It's called the power source filter model. This is used in everywhere from top level science to your basic voice classroom. It's just such a useful model that everybody loves for good reason. It's a really good model. So we have a power, okay? That's going to be the muscles of the diaphragm. That's going to be the air in your lungs, okay? You can think of it as the material of your voice, okay? It's the air, okay? So that air, it travels when we're speaking. it travels up into your larynx, okay? And that's where stuff starts happening, all right? Let me get my camera a bit bigger so I can see what you guys can see. Make sure that I am making this nice and visible. Okay, so very helpfully, I happen to have a very sticky outy larynx. Just the entire Adam's apple, yeah, but the whole tube. You can just see it on me, which is really useful for demonstrations. Perfect for the career I went for. This tube here, this is my larynx, okay? Might not be as obvious on you. Most people's don't stick out as much as mine does. I'm just very lucky, I guess, for the exact career. Yeah, so we got this tube here, okay? And it's just this tube of cartilage, all right? If you've heard of a voice box, that's like the common term for this, okay? But the proper term is the larynx, all right? Now inside of a larynx, kind of down here-ish, you know, around this general area, sort of slightly above the bottom, there are two little flaps of tissue, and they are your vocal folds. If you heard like the voice cords, vocal cords, anything like that, that's what we're talking about here. I don't know where cord came from because they're like flaps, but whatever. Two little flaps of tissue. And they do this. They open and they close. And they do that really quickly. We could be as low as like 80 times a second, maybe lower, all the way up to like 800 times a second, or maybe faster, yeah? They go really quick, okay? And as they're doing this insanely fast, the air starts to vibrate, okay? Now you have these little sensors in your ears, these little hairs, okay? And they pick up vibrations in the air, they take that information, they send it up to your brain, and your brain interprets that as sound. So in a very literal sense, vibrations in the air is sound. Like they're the same thing. It's just your brain takes vibrations in the air, interprets it as sound. Same thing. So we have sound now, okay? But this is just like a very basic sound, okay? It's got a note, and it's got like a level of buzziness, I suppose. If you've ever like played with like a sound generator, or like a note generator, a synthesizer, anything like that, and just like clicked on one of the notes and just goes like that's what we're talking, okay? It's got like a level of like buzz to it, and it's a note, and that's it, okay? However, sound doesn't in real life exist like that, because we're in a tube right now. Sound exists within space, and sound takes on the shape of a space, okay? So when you have sound in a container, like we do here, it's going to take on the shape of that container, the size of that container. We can see this in like, here is my ukulele. A little listen. Okay. Here's my big old bass guitar. Okay. Similar shape, but very different size, as you can tell. Now those notes were roughly the same, pretty close, but the sound was really different. You could really hear one was like big and booming, and the other one was like really small and tiny. And that's that filter, okay? So we call this the filter because you have a sound, but then it's taking up all this space and being shaped by that space, okay, as it bounces around, all right? And this happens for you as well when you speak. So that sound bounces around, it takes on the shape of your larynx, the shape of your whole vocal tract. Your mouth, this crazy, incredible instrument, you might notice that when you talk, your mouth moves a whole bunch. Your tongue moves, everything in there is moving a lot. And what's happening there is you're shaping the sound and you're forming it into words. So you'll find, if you want to like play with this and like see that like your mouth isn't making sound, it's just shaping it. Get an electric toothbrush, start brushing your teeth, okay? And then without making any sound, move your mouth around and start like mouthing words, and you'll start to hear the words because the toothbrush, it vibrates the air as it vibrates around, becomes that source, okay, like in our power source filter model. It becomes the source, makes that sound, okay, that note, and then you start shaping that with your mouth, okay? Have a little play with that later. Yeah, so we can shape sound. We make it into words, we make it all sorts. That makes sense for everybody? Term chord here is probably from the same root as in geometry, trigonometry. You have tube, a roughly circular cross section, and two basically straight lines coming across it. Oh, okay, fair enough. Although the spelling is slightly different there. When people say vocal cord, in terms of like for that term, it's C-O-R-D, as in like a chord, like a cord of wire or something. Again, I don't know why they call it that. It's not chord. It's not chordy. It's a flap. Although maybe that's to do with your the geometry thing you're describing there. I don't know. Squeeze your fingers, tighten muscles in your arms. Oh yeah, that can happen. For like ulnar muscle, I don't know what that is. Finger tendons are connected to the carpal. I know of the carpal because carpal tunnel is a thing. But yeah, point is you can't it's really hard to pinpoint muscles in areas where there's a lot of muscles. You can really do that where there's like really big ones. Yeah. Okie dokie. All right. Let's keep going then. Let me know if this is all making sense, by the way. Give me feedback. Yeah, keep me up to date with yeah, this is making sense. Or no, hey, could you go back over that? The filter bit. Hey, that made no sense to me. Shaping sound. What are you talking about? Yeah, let me know if you need to go back over stuff. But also let me know if actually no, it did make total sense. Because that's also good for me to know. Okay, let's keep going then. If I've moved past something, by the way, but you had a question, do still ask your question. I promise I'll go over it. Okay. And if you notice that somebody has asked a question, if you're in one of the chats, you notice someone asked a question and I've missed it, reply to that question and at me. And be like, hey, Zara, you missed this. It's really cool seeing you guys help each other out and make sure that everybody gets heard. But also it helps me out a lot because I don't want to miss people's questions, you know? Okay, let's keep going. So how does this apply to us in terms of changing the gender perception of our voice? All right. Well, first thing we need to understand is what changes, okay, to produce our gendered voices. And it's all down to testosterone. So first important thing, when we go through puberty, the thing that changes your voice, whether you are AMAB, AFAB, whatever's going on, it's testosterone, okay? Estrogen does nothing to the voice. It has no impact at all. All of it is down to testosterone and just differing levels of testosterone exposure. So AFABs have a small amount of testosterone exposure, and that's what takes their voice from a childlike voice to a more matured feminine voice. And AMABs obviously go through a lot more testosterone exposure, and that's what brings them to a more masculized or a more matured masculized voice. Okay, so it's all down to testosterone exposure and just differing levels of that. This is why if you go through masculizing hormone therapy, your voice is going to start changing. That varies massively for everybody. There are certainly lots of masculizers who do not get much change in their voice and find that they want voice training. There's also plenty of masculizers that they get a voice, but it wasn't the one they wanted, and so they want to do voice work to get the actual voice they were going for. So certainly masculizers, voice masculization is absolutely a thing. And then for our feminizers, if you are on feminizing HRT, you will find that absolutely nothing happens to your voice at all, and everything has to come from voice training. Sucks, but it is what it is. Although you do get to learn a really freaking cool skill, so that's kind of cool. So let's talk about what does testosterone do. First of all, those vocal folds, those little flaps. You can see by that power source film model, you can see it in action in this. What would be there? Everything is mirrored for me. This GIF over there, you can see the GIF on the screen. You can see that power coming up right at the bottom. You can see those the air coming up. You see those vocal folds opening and closing and creating that sound. And then you can see it bouncing around and taking on the shape until it projects out.
Sorry.
Oh, do you mind muting your mic for me, please? Thank you. Yeah, you can see that whole process of that power source film model. Really, really cool. So those vocal folds that we see opening and closing, they start thickening up. Okay? So that level of buzziness we were talking about, that starts to get buzzier and buzzier as those flaps get meatier and meatier and more of it more mass going in, we really hear that mass. Yeah. So we'll go from a softer, lighter voice like this over towards a thicker, heavier, meatier, like greater mass voice. You can really hear, like, you can hear all of the mass going into this. You can hear that thickness in my voice right now, that roughness, that buzziness. Okay? Okay, so there's one of the things. We also have a vocal folds they lengthen. That drops the pitch down. We'll talk later about why that really doesn't matter, and you do not need to care about pitch. As a basic for it, though, yes, the pitch drops when the vocal folds lengthen. However, we all have access to pitch ranges that are so much wider than anyone ever speaks at. You can go lower than you've ever heard someone talk. You can go higher than you've ever heard someone talk. So yes, we have that pitch drop happen, but also no, and that actually when you look at individuals, that varies massively because like what you have access to changed, but what you had access to was like where's my camera? Here, and what you use is here. So like the access changed, but it has no relevance to this because like we just don't use our full pitch range ever. Like you never hear somebody like you never hear somebody talking all the way over here. Nobody does this, but you have access to it. So like yes, that bit might have changed a bit, but no, it doesn't matter in the slightest because you weren't using it anyway. So really that bit, don't worry about it. Okay. It's way more cultural. It's way more individualized. It's like, so do not worry about it. Okay. Low pitched femme voices sound lush. High pitched mask voices sound like pretty dominant, pretty cool. Okay. So like, do not worry about that at all. Okay. Yeah. Also, so lastly, the larynx, that tube we were talking about earlier, it lengthens and expands. Okay. As it expands, this like Adam's apple shape, that's part of everybody's larynx. Like every human being has that little bump, but as it expands, starts to push against the skin, so you just start to see it from the outside. But the lump is in everybody. It's just the shape of a tube. There's just like a little bit where it protrudes. But yeah, so that starts to expand, and that space starts to increase. So remember that filter we talked about? That's going to impact the filter. We have a bigger space, which means the sound's taking on a shape. It's taking on a larger shape. It's the same shape, but it's bigger. And that impacts the sound. Like we're doing with that ukulele and the bass guitar. We go from that ukulele to the bass, okay? We go from a much smaller voice all the way over here. Now notice my pitch. My pitch is still pretty low. This isn't a pitch change right now. This is a change to that size, that volume, okay? Like space existing, okay? And if I now, you can see, there's my larynx. It's right the way up here, okay? Hopefully the light isn't blowing it out too much. Now if I was to go over here, we can move that larynx back down again. We have way more space going on, and you can hear that much larger sound to my voice because literally we have more space. So that larynx lengthening, it drops down a whole bunch. We make way more space, and that changes the sound of the voice, okay? And we can that's something that as humans, we actually really, really recognize that size change and recognize it as a size change. If you think of think of like a cartoon giant. How does a giant sound? What do we think of when we think of a giant voice? We tend to think of something quite like this. And what have we talked about is the large sound. It's that larynx dropping all the way down, creating space. So literally, that larger space, we hear that as a larger space. And if you think of like a big person, a really big, like a literal giant, they have these big booming voices. And that's created by that increased space. So we have an intuitive understanding of this, which is really helpful. So like think, what does it sound like for someone to sound small? Or like what, just intuitively, if you were to voice act like a tiny mouse or a big giant, what sort of sounds would you be thinking there? And that's going to be this variable, okay? We'll talk about it more later, but I call it size for that exact reason. So to put all of those things together, we'll start off with our de-androgenized voice, where we haven't been exposed to any testosterone. we'll have that vocal fold thickening, where all of that buzziness comes in. We'll have that larynx lengthening, where that size comes in. And now we have our masculized voice. Okay? Yeah. And obviously, reversal of all that, it's going to be a feminized voice. And what's really helpful is you might have just noticed I just did those in front of you, which means, yes, these things happen. However, we can make behavioral changes to completely reverse the effects of that. At larynx, yes, it drops down and expands, but you have muscles. It's attached to the hyoid bone. Don't worry about it. You can just, it raises up. It moves up, okay? Now, don't you try to push it up. Don't you try to raise it up. Focus on making right sounds. We'll talk about it later. But it moves, you know, like, it moves. It's like, yeah, it dropped, but we just bring it back up again and nothing happens. Which is cool. Okay, so what do we do about all this? There's a bunch of theory for you, but let's do some action, okay? So before we can get into things properly, we do need to do a warm-up, okay? If you're brand new, can you yell in that voice? Yeah, I can yell in this voice. Yeah, I can go as loud as I want to. I can go as loud as I did in my previous voice. Yeah, loudness not affected in the slightest. Hells yeah. Yeah, fun fact, women can be loud too. Yeah, absolutely. If you can do it in your old voice, you can do it in your new voice. Doesn't matter what your old voice was and what new voice you've done. It doesn't matter whether you're masculizing, feminizing, androgenizing, any of it. If you could do it before, you can still do it now. Yeah. So, warming up, all right? We're going to do a particular kind of a warm-up. It's called a SOVT, okay? It stands for semi-occluded vocal tract exercise. Big old words, do not worry about it, okay? All this means is, let me click on that. Semi-occluded just means a partial closure, or partial barrier, okay? Vocal tract, we've talked about that. And exercise, you know what exercise is. Even if you hate it, you know what it is. That's what we're going to be doing, okay? We're going to create a partial closure in our vocal tract, and that's going to be utilized during our exercise, all right? So, what's the concept of this? Essentially, think of that power source filter model, like that power source bit. We have all of that power, all of that air, pushing through our vocal folds while they're vibrating. Now, generally, not a big deal, but if we're trying to warm up specifically, you'll have done warm-ups, you'll have done stretches before, you try to keep things gentle when you're warming up. That's the gentle time, okay? So that you can, like, more safely really stretch things out, okay? So all of that air pressure, not really super useful when we're trying to warm up, okay? So what we do is think power source filter model. We have air coming through, and then eventually that air is going to make its way out. That's your voice. Now, imagine we make a barrier, okay? Somewhere along this. And as the air is traveling through, some of it, there's only a partial barrier, some of it is going to hit that barrier, and what's going to happen? It's going to rebound. Put your hand in front of your face, blow. You can feel the air rebounding and hitting your face, because that's what happens. If it hits it, it bounces off, okay? So we created a barrier. We'll talk about how in a minute. And that barrier has meant that when the air hits it, it bounces back and it starts traveling backwards. So now we have all that air going up and creating air pressure, and we have air going down and creating air pressure. Okay? Basic physics, when two forces meet, they cancel each other out. So we have that downwards pressure meeting with upwards pressure, and that they cancel each other out. So we don't have as much air pressure anymore. Okay? So all that upwards pressure we were talking about, now we've reduced that pressure. Okay? Your vocal folds are now under less pressure. Does that make sense? We do sometimes lose people on that explanation. Air's coming up as your vocal folds are making sound. Okay? And they're vibrating that air. That's a lot of air pressure they're under. So we make a little barrier further along the vocal tract. That air hits the barrier, some of it comes back down, hits the air that was pushing up on your vocal folds, and so some of that energy is taken away. And so your vocal folds are just, there's not so much air pressure hitting them. Yeah? So they can now stretch out and be a bit more comfy. So how are we going to make this barrier? All right, or this partial barrier, sorry. There's a few ways to do this. My go-to vote is the lip trill, because it's easy. It works as a really good barrier. We get a lot of air rebounding back, a really solid amount, and it's a really safe exercise. If you go wrong, the drill will collapse instead of your voice getting hurt. Okay, so it has nice safety features in it. You'll see what I mean as you play with it, because you'll probably do it wrong at first and it'll be completely fine. And lastly, it's really convenient. Whenever you're walking around, you can do lip trills, like anytime. You don't need anything for it. So how do we do it? What is a lip trill? Okay. First of all, we're going to make this sound. Now, if you don't know how to make that sound, we'll break it down a little bit. Think about I don't know why we call it this, because I've never heard a horse do this, but whatever. Think about that sound we make that we describe as when we're doing an impression of a horse sighing. Now, I've never heard a horse sigh, but whatever. We do the whole... Yeah? We kind of refer to that as it's the impression we do of a horse sighing. I don't know. It's accurate? Oh, okay. We have a vet here telling us it is accurate. The horses do that. I grew up in a little village around horse. I've never seen one do that. I just was unlucky, I guess. Yeah, we have that horse sigh sound. Now, what I want you to do is take that sound, but stop blowing so much, okay? Make it a lot more controlled, all right? And sustain it. So I want you to be able to do this for 5 seconds, and it'll be a perfectly stable sound, okay? I wasn't counting there, but hopefully I was around 5 seconds. Nice and stable is the point. And stop blowing, okay? Really, really gentle. Now, just add some sound. So I'm not blowing at all there. I'm doing the same amount of air as just ah. I just opened my mouth, didn't change anything, so you could hear what was actually being inputted there. Okay. Now, if something's going wrong, usually it's going to mean that you're blowing a lot. You're still blowing like what you did right at the very start, which we were trying to cut out. So you're probably going like this. You run out of air really quick, and right now that will be stable. But as we start doing stuff, that's going to lose stability really quick because you don't have as much control. Okay, so get rid of that air. If you're not sure if it's right, just open your mouth partway through so you can have a proper listen to it. If it sounds like this, you can hear all of that breathiness. We need to reduce that. We need to get rid of it entirely. We just want so when it's right, it will sound like yeah. So that can be just like a little helper. All right. Your lips should be totally relaxed. I don't want any of that. That's not gonna. Not what we're going for. We're not trying to blow a raspberry. Totally relaxed lips. Don't do anything with your lips. They're just gonna kind of get blown around. Okay. Play with it. You'll get a hang of it. You might not get it straight away, but you'll get a hang of it. Okay. All right. So once we're making that stable sound, we've made our softie. The lips are your partial barrier. Okay. They're kind of like flapping around for wind. So whenever they're closed, that's a rebound. And then obviously they open sometimes, so it's not like all of it being rebounded, just totally deadening our voice. Just enough, but we can still use our voice, but everything just gets cushioned nicely. Okay? So, once we're making the sound, we've got the setup, we'll start doing some stretching. To do some stretching, all we're going to do is just move our pitch up and down. But we're going to start slow, and we're going to build up. Okay? Small stretch, then a bit more, then a bit more, and we'll just keep going like that. Okay? So just start off with a really small pitch movement. Nice. And go a little bit bigger. And a bit more. we keep going like that. So we just go a bit higher and a bit lower, and then a bit higher again, and a bit lower again. And we keep doing that, building out and out and out and out. Think of like a pendulum, but like instead of like, it does a big movement and then it slowly fills out. We're gonna do the opposite. So we're doing like a reverse pendulum, okay? So we've got like our no movement, just like a little wiggle, a bit more of a wiggle, again, a bit more, a bit more, and a bit more, until eventually we're going as high as we can go and as low as we can go. Okay, full pitch range. Okay, and then I like to get like an extra stretch out of it. So I'll go, once I've done, like I've slowly made my way to the entire pitch range. So small uppy down till eventually it's the biggest uppy down. And make sure we're going as low as we can go, as well as high as we can go. The low end is like important as well, because this is just about stretching. We're not gaining a skill here, we're just stretching. So we need to stretch like all areas. Okay. Once we have reached our entire pitch range, we've just done one that's as high as we can go and as low as we can go. For an extra little stretch, I like to go up to the top again. This time we'll wiggle our pitch up and down. I call it pitch sounding because it sounds like an E-null. And then back down to bottom. So. Making sure we do get to the bottom there. And then we'll do the reverse. So we'll start at the top, all the way down to the bottom, pitch down, back at the top. That'll be our full set. Normally takes about 5-6 minutes, depending on how quick you are. Well, no, that's how long it takes in lessons, and we're doing it back and forth. It's like 2 or 3 minutes to do a full set. You can absolutely do it for longer though. And what this is going to do is it's just going to really nicely warm up our voice. You'll feel your voice is just so much easier to use after doing a set. It's going to be much, much nicer for you. There's a lot of like bonus advantages to this as well. It's going to be increasing your because of the blood flow is increasing, that hydration is reaching your voice. So just having drank, you can get that water there quicker. That's nice. And it's also going to really help you with, if you've ever experienced morning voice, this actually helps get rid of morning voice. It's just a fun little quirk of it that it just happens to fix that too. It's not what we meant it for, but it's just, it works with this too. May as well use it. Morning voice is just, we talked about how your body makes mucus earlier, and that's how it like stops air, like stops the other stuff in air, for solids, for bits of dust, bits of skin, bits of pollen, bacteria, pathogens, things that make you ill, traps any of that. Okay. Just as you're breathing, all of that gets caught up in the mucus. Okay. That's why we don't get ill every time we take a breath. Great. So your body is producing mucus that catches stuff in the air, and then you have these little brushes called cilia. You just brush it all up, and then you swallow it down and produce more mucus. So you just have it constantly being recycled. Okay, amazing. There's a problem though. At some point, you're going to go to sleep, and when you're asleep, you don't swallow anymore, so you can't get rid of it. That cilia, it starts to shut down. It starts to slow down and stop. So they're not moving the mucus anywhere. So you just have all of this mucus building up. You're still breathing, so there's still stuff coming in, and you still need to get rid of it. You still need to filter it. Okay, so that mucus is still like catching stuff and getting thicker, and you're still producing mucus because like you need to, otherwise you're going to get ill. So you're producing more and more mucus. It's getting thicker and thicker, and you're not getting rid of any of it. Which means when you wake up in the morning, you just have a lot of very thick mucus all around your vocal tract. So it just makes it's like your whole like vocal tract, everything's moving through syrup at this point. And so all the morning voice is it's just harder to move your voice. Everything's slowed down because it's moving through syrup. Okay, those vocal folds that we talked about how they like can open and close at different speeds. When we go slower, when they're like more slowly opening and closing, that produces lower pitches. When they're really, really fast, that produces higher pitches. So if we slow everything down, pitch goes down, and that's what we typically notice in a morning voice. Speech is just like a lower pitch, and it's everything is like jammier, I suppose. Yeah, it's just because of all that thick mucus. So you just do some warm-ups, bring that blood flow, wake everything up, get it moving, and that starts to shift all that mucus, and you get rid of it. And that's it. That's morning voice gone. That's why it's morning voice. Any usage of your voice starts doing that. But if you do some softies, you really wake things up, you'll get things much, much quicker. So just do like, if you've got really bad morning voice, you might need like a full like 5 minutes. That's like 5 minutes, and then it's gone, you know, and then your voice is easy to use again. So yeah, if you have morning voice, this will also help with that. In general, if you're brand new, if it's day one of your voice work journey, I would say start here, okay? Because you need a warm-up. You need to know how to warm up, so you need to like practice this and learn how to do it. B, another thing this is good for is maintaining vocal health. So there are several things that can go wrong in somebody's voice where softies help, because they just increase blood flow, which increases resources. Okay, so if you have a vocal injury, best thing to do is just not use your voice at all and let it heal. Second best thing to do, if you need to use your voice, is warm it up first, and that's going to help. So it helps in an injury state. And also, if you are a vocal underdoer, this will help quite significantly. This is your main treatment, essentially. Vocal underdoers are people who use their voice so little. Ultimately, any movement in your body is facilitated by some kind of muscle, okay? And while not a lot of this is like big muscle movements, at the very least, those vocal folds, that source, that is needing some muscle movement, okay? And everything all of your voice usage, there is some muscle movement in there, just not a lot. And like any muscle, if you just stop using it, it gets weaker and weaker, it atrophies, and eventually it's not strong enough to perform the task. So vocal underdoers are people who use their voice so little that they actually, like the muscles start weakening to the point where they can't actually produce a voice anymore. It's like if I sat in this chair for like a year, I just didn't get up. By the end of that year, I wouldn't be able to get up. And it's the same issue. We do in the trans community have a lot more people that are vocal underdoers because they just can't stand the sound of their voice, which really sucks, and just can't handle hearing it, and so they just stop using it entirely. And that's a problem. We can't go down that route, because if you go down that route, you start to lose your voice, and then we have a much bigger problem. But if you're already in that situation, if you are a vocal underdoer, if you are speaking for maybe like 20 minutes a day, or like a 20-minute conversation is just like exhausting for you, like physically your voice is just knackered afterwards, and you need to like rest it for the day, this is going to help, okay? This warm-up, this is like just a small, gentle workout, okay? It's not going to bring you to like vocal athleticism, and you don't need vocal athleticism. It's just going to bring you to average, to the same place everybody else is at, and that's all we need. We're not trying to do crazy things, we're just trying to talk. So for almost everybody, this bit isn't a relevant bit, but if you happen to be a vocal underdoer, this is really going to help you there, okay? Because all you need is just to get up to baseline. Beyond that is like beyond anything you're going to be using. So softies, I say everybody, 2 weeks, just focus on these. I want you doing these multiple times a day, as often as you can. Space that apart. Like, I don't want you sitting there doing an hour of softies. You will exhaust yourself. This is going to be no good. Your voice is going to be gone by the end of it. It's just going to be exhausted. Just do like 5 minutes, even 2 or 3 minutes, and then do that as many times a day as you can find, okay? You wake up in the morning, a couple of minutes of softies while getting dressed, or while I'm making breakfast, or whatever it is we're doing, making a cup of tea. On our way to work, we do a couple of minutes of softies. We're at the toilet, nobody else happens to be in the toilet, fuck it, we'll do a couple of minutes of softies. We're on our lunch break, let's do a couple of minutes of softies. It's a couple of minutes, you know? And look for, like, don't try to, like, stop doing what you're doing and spend 2 minutes doing softies. Do it while you're already doing what you're already going to do. Don't change your schedule. Don't book in, I'm going to do softies here, 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 here. None of that, because you will not follow that. Nobody will. It's way too hard. Instead, look for, when am I already doing something? But it just happens to not use my voice, so I may as well do something with my voice at the same time. If you're doom scrolling, keep doom scrolling, but do some softies at the same time. If you're making your dinner, keep making your dinner. You need your dinner, but do some softies at the same time. Getting dressed, having a shower, any of these like things where we may as well also be voice training. That's when we want to voice train. Okay, so we do not make any change to our day whatsoever. It makes it way easier. You can follow that. You can be consistent with that. And if we're consistently doing it at the same time as the same things, it's like it's always, when I'm getting dressed, I always do some voice training. When I'm making dinner, I always do some voice training. That consistency will get you in the habit of it as well. So nothing has changed in your day. There's zero inconvenience, and you have that habit and you actually do it all the time because you have that reminder. The voice training becomes easy. You can find like 8, 9, 10 times a day without any effort at all. It becomes really, really easy to do voice training that way. And for all practice, any homework you ever get, that's going to be how I want you to do it. Okay, those 5 minutes maybe while you're doing something else, so that you haven't changed anything about your day. Okay, it could be longer than 5 minutes. For the softies specifically, don't do like super long times. 10 minutes tops. For all the other homeworks, you can do it for as long as you want to. But we really want like frequency, amount of times a day, more than we want time spent, like total. Okay, so like the person that does like, God, if you did like 10 practices for like 3 minutes each every day, that's like 30 minutes total. That's an unbelievable amount. But if you did like one sit down 1 hour session, that's double the amount of time. But that sucks. You'll learn really slowly. You're gonna struggle to succeed if you're just doing 1 hour as a single sit down 1 hour a day, even though you spend double the time. Okay, because it's about returning to it often. Okay, that's how we build. That's how we build consistency. That's how we get good at this. Okay, so everybody, if this is where you're starting, then start with the softies. Your next 2 weeks, you're going to be doing this as often as you can through the day. It's gonna make sure that, because I don't know what state your voice is in right now, it's gonna make sure that by the end of it, it's in a good state. Okay. 2, it's gonna get you good at warm-ups because you need to have a warm-up. And 3, it's gonna get you into the habit of practicing and searching for opportunities to practice without impacting your day. Okay, it's gonna really build all of these patterns that we're then gonna use throughout all of our voice training journey. Okay, so really take advantage of this 2 weeks. Really use it as your opportunity to like get settled into something. Yeah. Okay. Any questions at all? Any questions? Let me know. Did that all make sense? Yeah. I'm gonna pop to the toilet real quick. So I have a couple minutes break. Tell me though. I wanna come back to a chat that has stuff in the chats. Okay. So even if you have no questions and everything makes total sense and you're following, say that. Everybody should have something that they've just said, whether they're following or not. Okay? Right, I'll see you in just a second. Okay, hello, hello, hello. Let's check that all worked. We have our sound back. I think we have. Wait, Trans Network, can you still hear me? I think that's just because I've expanded the thing, so it's not showing me if the sound's coming through. You should still be able to hear me, Trans Network. I don't know how it could be that you wouldn't be, so because everything else can be, but it's not saying that you can. But I'm pretty sure it's just because I've expanded the image. Yeah, you can hear it. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Fab. Okay, let's have a little look. See if you've all been active in the chat. How have you done your homework? So the only exercises shown was the pendulum trill. Didn't miss anything? Yeah. So the lip trills. The pendulum is like how we then apply that. But the actual trill itself is called the lip trill. There are others. Lip trill is just a really good one. I would say main alternatives for people that literally just can't trill their lips. I say hum with one nostril closed. So on and so forth, and do the pendulum thing. Really give a good go of lip trills before deciding you can't do them, though. Like, really, it's only if you can't do them, that you just can't, that you do that one, because it's not as good. It doesn't support your voice as much. Lip trills definitely like significantly better. But if you just can't do them, you can do it instead. And then the absolute best one, it's even better than the lip trills. It's just very inconvenient, and if I set it as homework, you won't do it, and neither would I. Is bubble phonation. So if you take a vessel of water, a cup of water, I recommend a bottle because it'll be a smaller hole, because this is going to get splashy. Okay, you take your bottle, pop a imaginary straw in, pop a real straw in. I just don't have a straw with me right now. Pop a straw in, maybe like an inch or two below the water, and then just start humming into the tube. It's always going to go like as all like the water splashes around, and just like hum into it and like blow those bubbles, but with sound. And again, do your reverse pendulum. Do the that's me imitating bubbles. You get the idea. That's the best one, because the water creates just the perfect partial barrier. Only problem is it makes a mess. I have used literally a bottle with a cap on. It's just got like a little hole that's just big enough for my straw. I still make a mess. You will make a mess. It's just not convenient. That means you have to carry a straw and a bottle of water around with you, and you want to do this like multiple times a day, so you have to always have it with you. It's just a faff, and it's too much of a faff for anybody to do consistently. It just won't happen. By all means, use it if you want to. It could be a good way to like help you like initially get the hang of like what you're doing. But beyond that, I recommend using the lip trills because they're almost as good, and they're way more convenient. You've always got your lips on you, and it don't make a mess. So that's what I recommend. Sovtes for V, not an F. Yeah, it's on the screen. No, over there, mirrored. And yeah, it's not 5 minutes a day. It's like 5 minutes would be like if you're doing a big old set, do it many times a day. Okay. So even if it's just like a couple of minutes, but do that like, if you can do that like 5-6 times a day, perfect. You can do it more. Hey, do more. But it's about like numbers of times a day as opposed to how long you spend doing it. Okay. Makes perfect sense. Your show has always been finding ways to practice. Okay, yeah. So that should help you. Finding ways to practice is it's all about not changing your day and removing barriers. Okay. So when you're having a shower, perfect time. You're not doing anything in your voice. People often sing in the shower. Really good time to do some voice practice. When you're making a cup of tea or a cup of coffee in the morning, really good time to do some voice practice because you're busy making your coffee, you've got a couple of minutes. You may as well, because like, why not? Getting dressed, may as well, why not? Any of those situations where it's like, I guess I could be doing some voice training at the same time, why not? That's when you want to be doing voice training, okay? Because it doesn't impact you in the slightest. It's like as convenient as possible. Yeah, lip trills every time you go to the loo. Exactly. Um, so a list of phrases for practicing. I specifically don't. We'll talk about that a bit later. If I haven't talked about it in like the next slide, remind me, okay? But we're going to talk about why actually I don't want you using a list of phrases, okay? We'll save that for the next slide, okay? My misfits are softies more for vocal strength or pitch range. They're just a warm up. It doesn't make any change, doesn't do anything, just warms you up to get you ready to then do something, okay? So you start your first 2 weeks on this to get good at doing that and to establish habits with practice and like routines. The only people that this is going to do stuff for vocal strength is for people who specifically use their voice so little that their voice is weakened and they've lost strength. So it will regain lost strength, but it's not for like building strength, you know? Just for those individuals that are vocal underdoers that happen to have an issue. But for everybody else, it's just a warm-up. It's not going to do anything to your voice, okay? Okay, all right. So, any other questions? If you're on Twitch, singing streams enough, you're bound to run into some redeems for affiliation. Yeah, probably. On the graph, there are also tongue trills. How effective are they? So on that graph, the bar that you see, basically you can think of that as how effective it is. It's how much pressure, like when we have that rebound, how much is being rebounded. That's what that graph shows. So you can see the tongue trill compared to like a lip trill, not that great. Like think about it, like the shape we're creating. Yeah, it makes sense. It's not going to create as much pressure as it like for lips because it's a smaller barrier. Hence we get those smaller intraoral pressures. And yeah, so you can kind of get an idea there. And yeah, the lip trill is like a perfect mix of as much pressure as we possibly be needing and really easy to do and really convenient to do. Small straw, you have to carry a straw around with you. Straw and water, you have to carry a whole bottle of water with you and a straw, and you're going to make a mess. Raspberries are just finicky and difficult to do. Lip trills, best of every world. That's why I recommend them. Okay, all right. Let's keep going. Any other questions I've missed? I don't think so. If you've got a question and you haven't asked it yet, do feel free to ask. Even if I've moved on to another slide, you can still ask a question. I will go back and make sure you get that. What about asterisks for? This is taken from a paper, and it just gets mentioned elsewhere in the paper. So you can ignore those. Yeah. Okay, so vocal weight / glottal quotient. This is going to be the first thing for actually changing the gender perception of a voice. Okay, we're going to start doing some stuff now. So you spent your first couple of weeks doing your softies. Now let's start doing some stuff. Okay. So what is this? We talked earlier about how like a basic sound has like a level of buzziness to it, and that's dictated by how much mass how thick your vocal folds are. Okay. That's a bit more complicated than that. With your vocal folds being thicker, it impacts the way they vibrate. Okay, so if you've got thicker vocal folds, they're more likely to spend more time closed, like within that open closed. Remember, they vibrate, they open and close really, really quick. Okay, we break that down. We could think of that as like cycles, repeating cycles. Okay, it's literally called a glottal cycle. So we have closed, open, closed. There's one cycle. And then we just continue that cycle over and over and over again, really, really quick. Okay? Now, if we break that down a little bit more, we could think of like, so quotient is a maths term, okay? It's basically like, think of it as like a percentage represented as a decimal. So a 0.2 quotient would be like 20%, or like a 0.8 quotient would be like 80%, okay? We have two states. We have closed, and we have open. And that's like the only two, because they're just open and closing. So we have our open quotient and we have our closed quotient. So amount of time open and amount of time closed. Okay. So if we were to say like we have an open quotient of 0.2, that would mean we must have a closed quotient of 0.8 because it's going to add up to 1. Okay. 20% and 8%. It would be more, that would be a crazy, that's never going to happen in your voice. You'll have like the open quotient is always going to be the big one in this situation. And that's what is being impacted by that increase of mass. You end up spending, by increasing the mass, you'll typically have the closed quotient start to increase. So the ratio of how much time you spend closed versus open, you're going to spend a bit more time closed, just a tiny little bit. Like your closed quotient will go from like 0.2 to like 0.3, tiny little adjustment. But if you run into the terms open quotient, closed quotient, that's what we're talking about there. But if we're increasing the open quotient, we're having that little like move from 0.7 to 0.8. You get the idea. I don't use that term unless I'm like giving a detailed description of what's going on. But we can just think about the sound, okay? So the sound change that has is buzziness, all right, or weight. The sound becomes lighter or heavier, okay? We have our light sound over here, and we have our heavy, really thick sound over here, that closed quotient sound. Over to wanting to look at it more over here, we have a really, really light, gentle sound, okay? Notice how this is the same lightness as we have here, the same lack of buzziness. My weight isn't changing right now. This is all the same weight. This is something else that's changing. We'll talk about that later. And then if I thicken it up and make it meatier, we have all that buzziness coming in. And then again, that's the same amount of buzziness. If I go over to here, we can hear all of that buzziness running through my voice right now because you have that really heavy weight. Okay? So we just call it weight because it just kind of sounds, people just think it sounds lighter or sounds heavier. That's like the words they use to describe it. So we call it weight. It's just like a perceptual description. But you could use any word, like amount of buzziness, more buzzy, less buzzy, heavier, lighter, rougher, smoother, thicker, thinner, whatever intuitively to you makes sense. Okay, it's quite good to use your own language in this. It'll like help you vibe with it more. Now, how do we change this thing? Okay, because you don't know how to change the ratio of how much time you spend closed to open. You probably didn't even know that was a thing until like just now. And you're right, that's not how we're going to control this. That would be insane. Humans definitely cannot do that. Instead, we're going to take advantage of a little association this has, or a little connection this has with pitch. When you move your pitch up, when you get into like the higher pitches, it's much easier to do that at a lighter weight. So much so that you're already going to do that intuitively without even trying to. Okay? And in the same way, the lowest possible pitches you can go to are only accessible with a heavier weight. You need that weight to support them. Okay? Now, one impact of this is if you are lightening your voice, if you're wanting to feminize, you'll find that the very lowest pitches you can't quite access anymore. Generally, that doesn't matter, although some people do use that bit of pitch in some of their pitch range, so you may have to pitch up ever so slightly, but only if you currently have a really low pitch. For most people, it's not going to be a relevant factor. I do have a couple of students though that speak in like lower than like a B2. If you speak lower than like a B2, you may have to raise things up a bit. I would say like anything from C2 upwards, you'll be totally fine, which is going to be how like 80% of you, 90% of you are in that range. Below C2 is pretty low. But I do get the odd student occasionally who just happens to speak at a really, really low pitch. That's just when they were first learning to speak, they just, you throw a dartboard and you just randomly pick a pitch. And that's just where they happen to land. It's not anything biological. It's just you gotta speak at A pitch. And there's nothing pushing you in any direction. Some cultural things, I guess. It's a bit of a roll of the dice because like you had to pick something. And that's sort of just, so some people roll over those that happen to go for a really low pitch. So for those people, if you are trying to lighten your voice and you have a really low pitch, you may have to increase it just a teeny weeny bit. But for almost everyone, it's not going to affect you. How are we going to use this connection to pitch? Think of like a mixer. We have those little sliders. We want to use our pitch slider to help us move our weight slider, and then we'll put our pitch slider back again, so we have our weight change. Okay. If you want to lighten your voice, if you want a more feminized weight, then we're going to start moving our pitch upwards, And as we do this, we're going to notice for that buzziness kind of leaving our voice, and our voice getting really thin. Okay? You notice how thin my voice became compared to how buzzy it started? Yeah, we got a much thinner sound. But now our pitch is in a crazy place. So we then want to keep that thin, light sound as we bring our pitch back down again. So we call this a pitch hill. This pitch is going to go up, and then it's going to go back again. So at the end, nothing's happened to your pitch. But as it moved up, so did our weight. And then we're going to keep our weight there as we bring our pitch back again. Okay? And you just bring it down to a normal speaking pitch, whatever is where you speak. Okay? So full drill sounds like this. And you can hear in my voice now, I have this really, really light, really, really gentle voice. It's very soft. It doesn't have any of that buzziness to it. It's a very, very light, thin sound. Okay? We'll go again. I'll do it in like this area of my voice. And now we have this very light, very gentle sound, whereas we started off with that really, really buzzy sound. At the start of the drill, we ended up with a much lighter sound by the end of it. And that was just, we moved our pitch up. On its own, that buzziness just went away. And like, try it right now at home. That buzziness is just going to go away on its own. If it's not, keep going higher. It will go away, I promise you. It's not possible for it to not. Keep going higher and higher and higher. Eventually, you'll have this really thin voice. And then, when you're happy with that, start bringing it back down to just a normal speaking pitch, but keeping that thin quality. And that's going to change your voice. So then, hold that, maintain that, get comfy with it, and take it into some speaking. So earlier, Tiffany asked, do you have any list of phrases for practicing? No, I do not. And I specifically do not. And I don't want you to do that either. Okay? I don't want you giving me rainbow passages. I don't want you reading off Harvard sentences. I don't want you counting, listening days a week, months of a year. Just talk. So do your drill. And then take that into talking about anything. But the point is, it needs to be off the top of your head. It needs to be fresh. If we are reading, if we are reciting passages, reciting a rainbow passage, anything like that, counting, we're not going to use our normal voice. We're going to use our reading voice. And we all are familiar with like our reading voice. It's also our on phone voice. It's not our normal voice. It's not our bass voice. And we want to, like, the thing we're trying to change is our bass voice. So use that. So to make sure it's your bass voice, just ramble. Talk about anything. Talk about your day. Do a little Dear Diary, but out loud. You can talk about the drill. Talk about what you're doing, how you understand it. Talk about like, okay, this is done to this to my voice. Like narrate like what you're hearing. Analyze your voice out loud. That's a really good one because also that will help you with analyzing your voice, which you need to do. Talk about literally anything, you know. Talk about your favorite book. Just talk, ramble. That's the best way to practice because that's the closest that there is to using your voice in the wild when we're in a conversation. We're just talking. So my go-to for people is like, if you can't figure out what to talk about your day because it changes every day. I'll talk about what you've been up to today. Talk about what your plans are today, you know, depending on if it's morning or evening, whatever. And then talk about your favorite book, talk about weekend plans, talk about dinner, talk about anything. Just talk. And that's how I want you to practice. Okay. Now for masculizers, if you are trying to get a heavier voice, then you're going to do the pitch trough. Think what we were just doing, flip it on its head. Okay. So we're going to go really low in pitch. And as we're going to the very bottom, like lower than you think you can go, the absolute lowest of lows, you're going to notice something in your voice. You might not have ever been this low before. When you go really low, your voice gets weird. It gets sludgy and thick and very bizarre. Okay? it's called the grave extension. It allows us to go to like an extra low that sounds very bizarre. Okay, have a listen. You hear that? My voice went a little crazy there. Okay, and it's the same thing's going to happen to you. Just keep going lower, and eventually you're going to hit that sludge. Okay, the grave extension. And that's really useful because in that sludge, one of the things that makes it so muddy, there's a few things in there, but one of them is a heavy vocal weight. Okay, because remember, we need a heavy vocal weight to get to those pitches. It happens on its own because it's the only way to do it in the first place. So just keep moving your pitch lower, and your vocal weight will increase. It has to. It's the only way to do it. Amazing. So now we try to take that sludge and bring it back up with us. Okay. And now I have in my voice all that really thick, meaty sound. You can hear my voice, like, it's really buzzy now. It's really, really buzzy. And that's all come from that grave extension. Okay? So take that word and drag it up. Now, there's another thing in there as well. There's a really obvious sound. You can hear that popping and crackling. That's vocal fry. At first, if you're just learning this, allow the vocal fry to come up well as well. It's not what we're going for, but like for now, you just need to get good at moving that sludge up. As you get better with it, as you get some practice, try to avoid that fry coming with. We just want the buzzy sound, okay? So that if you have and you have all of this buzzy sound, this popping sound, as well as all of our buzzing sound, that's okay for now. In time, though, this is vocal fry. In time, get rid of this. And you just have this buzzy sound. Okay, listen for the difference. One sounds very thick, very meaty. The other sounds like popping and crackling. Okay, so you don't want popping and crackling, you want buzzing. Okay, but at first, by all means, bring both up. So long as that buzzing comes, I don't mind if it's not perfect. You're just getting a taste of it. All right. As you get better with that, then get rid of the crackling. Okay, so all that's happened is your voice has gotten buzzier. All right. Any questions about that? Yeah, any questions? If you are androgenizing, then depends on where you started, is what you're going to do. So if you started with a more feminized voice and you want something more androgenized, start masculizing and just stop sooner. Okay? Or like get good of it and then scale it back a bit. If you are androgenizing and you start with a more masculine voice, start feminizing, get good at that, and then scale it back. Okay, so get to a lightweight and then bring that to like a medium weight, and like you decide where that's going to be and what you want it to be. Okay. Now some common issues you might run into, and do be asking questions right now. Let me know, is this all making sense? Common issues you might run into, breathiness. This is more going to be one for the people going for a lighter weight. Breathiness is typically going to cause a lighter weight is quite easily muddled up with breathiness. Now, really, they sound very different from one another, but at first, you might muddle them up a bit. So think, breathy voice, we're going to hear all of that air, okay? A breathy voice sounds like this. We can hear all of that air coming through our voice, okay? You like hear the breathing. That's why we call it breathiness. A lightweight sounds like this. It has none of that buzziness going through. Okay, it's just a different sound. Okay, and we can have a heavyweight and a breathy voice. So I have this heavyweight, and then I go really, really breathy while also having this heavyweight. You can have both at the same time because breathiness and weight are just nothing to do with one another. Just breathy kind of sounds similar to light-ish. Like if you're first learning it, it's easy to muddle up. So watch out. Are you going breathy? If you are, you need to fix that. Okay. Best way to fix it is just going to be learn to do breathiness on purpose. So like if you're accidentally doing breathiness, do more. Do like go crazy with it. Go as breathy as you can. to gain some control, and then try to remove it again. Okay? And then go super breathy, and then try to get rid of it all. Super breathy and try to get rid of it all. And get good at like turning it on and turning it off. Like make sure that on isn't on, really go breath with it. And then completely turn it off. And then you'll be able to apply that. If you're accidentally go breathy during a pitch hill, use that level of control you've now learned to switch it off. Okay. Okay, loudness is another common problem. People going louder when they go to a heavier weight or quieter when they go to a lightweight. And like intuitively, it kind of seems like a heavier weight is louder or a lighter weight is quieter. It's not really the case. There's a lot of like vocal noise in a buzzier voice. There's a lot of extra frequencies coming in, and it kind of makes it sound like we have a louder sound, but it's more just we have a busier sound. Okay. So play with that. Make sure that when we do this, nothing's changing about how loud we are. We just say ordinary speaking loudness. Or to really play with this, make sure that like whether you're going for a heavier voice or a lighter voice, make sure you can still yell, and I mean like yell, like as loud as you can. Hey, over here, hey! I can still yell really loudly while having this light voice, okay? And make sure you can have your heavy weight and you can still go really quiet, because usually it's going to be this way around that the muddle up is happening. So make sure that like you can do whatever it is you're doing, make sure you can go loud and make sure you can go quiet, okay? You should be able to do all the same loudness things as you always do. Okay, and then the last ones are hyperadduction and hyperabduction, or strain and rasp. Okay, technically breathiness is also hyperabduction, but like don't worry about it. We're talking about rasp right now. So if we're straining our voice, it'll kind of like sound like we're holding our breath. Usually this is going to be the people going for a heavier weight that do this, where we end up kind of sounding like this and we're like holding our breath as we talk. Or maybe it kind of sounds like this. You can really hear all of that strain in my voice, like all of that force going in. It fucks with your breathing. That'll be the first thing you notice. Like if you keep going, it would eventually you just have to stop and breathe. Make sure your breathing is totally normal. It's not being impacted in the slightest. There's not a ton of force going in. This isn't like energy consumptive to do. Everything feels normal. That's going to help you with that. If you find you are hyperreducting and you're like trying to figure out how to turn it off, you could practice you try both of these different things because they kind of present a little bit differently. Try speaking with your breath held and then speaking normally and go back and forth between the two, just like we did with breathiness. Get good at that, okay? And then apply it so that like when you're doing your practice, you keep your breathing totally normal and nothing's happening. And then the other way that we could have high reduction happening is imagine you're at the gym. I'm picking up a really heavy weight, a silly heavy weight, okay? And then we're going to try and talk like that. You can hear again, we have that same sound coming through, okay? And again, that's going to be high reduction. So if you're sounding like that, then like practice doing it on purpose, and then on purpose stop doing it. And that developing the control is going to mean you can then apply that control and be on purpose turning it off. Now, when we're practicing that one in particular, keep it chill. Yes, I said lifting a heavy weight, not that heavy. Don't put that much force into it because that's quite tiring for your voice, high risk of injuries. I don't want you going crazy on hyperreduction practice. Only do it if it's to fix and get rid of hyperreduction. Like if you're already accidentally doing it, we're just gaining intent so we can intentionally stop doing it. But the whole point is to be not doing it. Okay? And if you do need to practice it because you need to like get good at turning it off, do so gently, like as gently as you can for practicing tensing, and keep it chill. Like just do it for a couple of minutes. As soon as you start feeling pain or discomfort, back off, give yourself some rest. You don't want to overdo this one, okay? Because like we're making you stop doing this because it's bad for you, okay? So obviously practicing it is bad for you. So just like keep it, certainly in this situation, come to me first or come to a voice teacher you're aware of. Definitely get some advice just to make sure you're doing things nicely. And definitely warm up first. Definitely warm up first. Okay, then abduction. Imagine we're doing that same lifting weight, but then we go breathy during that, and then we end up with this really hoarse voice. If you're having this kind of a voice come across, this is probably going to be where both heavier weights and lighter weights do this, but I hear it more in the lighter weights. If you have this kind of a sound coming through, this is a problem, okay? You do not want this happening. It's really intense on your voice. Like that one's rough. Does not feel good. Very uncomfortable. Really avoid that. Again, practice doing it on purpose, so you can practice turning it off on purpose. But only if this is an issue cropping up for you. Don't just do it for the sake of it, because that one especially, that's intense. That is going to be messing with your voice in not a good way. Yeah, definitely having that issue, reach out. Let me know. We can book a lesson. You can just record a clip. I have a free clip feedback section. So even if you can't afford lessons, just send a clip in, get some advice. That's definitely something you want help with, okay? So that's pretty intense in your vocal tract. It's not good. It probably hurts to do, which is why you should be doing it. But yeah, those are the most common problems I run into with weight stuff. Yeah, any questions on any of that? Any questions on weight? Do you all understand how to start practicing that? How to start playing with that? What it sounds like for a lightweight or a heavyweight? Let me know. Even if it's like, yep, that made total sense. Let me know that as well. I wanna know where you guys are at. Keep me filled in. The exercise with screaming was about decreasing or increasing abduction. So for this one, where we end up like this, so we've lifted the heavy weight, and then we've gone breathy. So we lifted the heavy weight, and then went breathy during it. That's for abduction. So doing that creates that abduction, that really hoarse, rough voice, which we don't want. That's for like doing it on purpose, so that you can then stop doing it, and then do it on purpose, and then stop doing it, so you can like get control, so you can intentionally stop doing it in the drill, and focus on the weight instead. And then one where it's just the lifting the weight without going breathy, that's the adduction. I think adds, it brings more in. Abd takes away. It abducts, like an abduction. Okay, it's about like how much force we're putting into our vocal folds. We have like an air gap that's created in the abduction. And then we have these false vocal folds that are meant to just be reflexive flaps, but we're humans, so we found a way to make sound of them, and it's pretty rough. They're not made for that. Can hyperabduction sound like breathiness if you're doing it wrong enough? So technically, they are both breathy. So like hyperabduction is breathiness, but if we're doing it in that really hoarse way that we really don't want to do, it's breathiness plus your false vocal folds, which like you got your vocal folds and then just a little above you have your false vocal folds. They're like, well, a little bit. They're like here-ish. Like you'll really feel that discomfort around here, but like inside. That's going to be what we're talking about here. This really hoarse, rough voice. Imagine like you've like accidentally created a leak, but your body's trying to fix it. So your false vocal folds like tagging like, oh, I got this, but they really don't got this. And that's where we get that really raspy sound. That's why it hurts, because your vocal folds are not good at that. Your false vocal folds are not good at that. They're not vocal folds. They're just protective flaps of tissue. Yeah. That makes sense? Any other questions? Raspy is probably like the most avoids doing that sound. That's really rough. Like even having just done that demo, I'm like, whoa. You know? Now it's just a little demo. So to increase adduction, you should lift weights, but remove abduction over time. It's not that you literally lift weights, it's just you pretend to, and like you make the sound that is that. Remember, we don't want to increase adduction. It's just if we're already accidentally adducting, then like if we're messing it up, and like we're trying to go for heavy weight, but we're accidentally adducting at the same time, it's practice doing it on purpose so you can get control. so you can on purpose stop doing it. Okay? All of these common problems, they're all things you don't want to do. We don't want to be hyperducting. We don't want to be hyper abducting. We don't want to be like, we don't want our loudness to get fucked with. We don't want our breathiness to get fucked with. We just want the weight to change. Whenever we're making a change, we only want that thing to be what's changing. Okay? You're told you do too much abduction and should play around with adduction. Ooh, that is not how I would recommend that. Technically, that's true, but like, that's not a very good description. We're talking about hyper adduction, so like too much of it, or too much abduction. So if you're dealing with abduction, first of all, do you make sound A? Is this the issue? When you're making this kind of sound here, does it sound like this when you're trying to do it? Or does it sound like this when you're trying to do it? We have all of this air coming through. Which one is it, Lydia? It might not be that extreme. It might be just like a bunch of air coming through. You can do both, but like when you've been told that you have too much abduction, I assume that's like you're trying to do something, and when you do it, you accidentally abduct as well. So what's the I guess when does this occur? But you've been told that you are abducting too much. When? What context did this crop up in? Was it while doing weights or was it something else? It was an overall feedback you got on your clip. What, just like in your ordinary voice? That sounds... If you weren't trying to do anything, it's just what's in your ordinary voice. I have doubts about that feedback. I think I'd need a bit more context. Tell you what, I probably need a bit more context there to give you some better feedback. If you want to, if you head over to my Discord, Trends Network, if you click on my user, there's a link to it there if you want to just like click through in my little Discord bio or whatever. There's a little clip feedback section. Post that clip over there. I'll have a little listen and I'll give you some feedback on that after this workshop. Or if you are around at the end, I might not be doing. I might again not be doing the feedback section at the end of this workshop. It will depend on time. I might do an extra on Friday. I'll decide that later. No promises yet. We'll see. Yeah, no worries. Okay, all right. Let's keep going then. Whoa, all that raspiness is really... I am feeling that. Ouchie. Okay, so with massive vocal weight, you can really easily get to a lightweight, really easily get to a heavyweight, whichever one it is you're trying to do. It's easy now, okay? You've done that much practice. It's just easy, okay? We also had already done our 2 weeks of softies, okay? So we did our 2 weeks of softies, moved on to vocal weight. We've got to hang on vocal weight. It's easy now. Let's do the next thing, okay? That's going to be size, all right? And this is going to be the big one, all right? Size, for most people, is way harder than anything else we do, okay? And it's probably going to be what you spend most of your time learning and practicing, because this is a very odd sound that you're not used to. But it also has a huge change to your voice, which you're going to like, okay? This is going to be the one where you're like, oh, wow, goddamn, changes are happening. When we get it right. But it's going to take a lot of practice, okay? So it's going to also be the most frustrating bit for people because like it's very tricky to do, all right? Now, what is size / resonance / larynx height? You've probably come across one of those terms before, and it's all about that filter we talked about way earlier in the workshop, okay? Remember, sound takes on the shape of its environment. So if you got a bigger space, make a bigger sound. That's why I call it size. Now, this process of sound taking on the shape of its environment, it's called the sound resonating. Okay, you've probably heard that term before. It bounces around its container, and that bouncing around shapes it. Okay, so the container that the sound is resonating in, we call it a resonator. Okay, and this whole process is called resonance. Okay, so as we change one of our resonators, your mouth is a resonator because we can move stuff around in our mouth and change the shape of a sound. So that's a resonator. We can change our larynx. That's a resonator. Your pharynx, we'll talk about that later, is a resonator. All of these chambers, all of these containers that we can manipulate to change the shape, that's called a resonator. That's like what that word means. So that's where we get this idea of resonance. Okay, a brighter resonance or a darker resonance. It literally 1-to-1. It's just the same thing as size. I just prefer the word size because it communicates more of what's going on, and you have an intuitive sense of something sounding bigger or smaller. So I like to call it size. But you can totally call it resonance. It makes no difference. It's just two words for the exact same thing. And then we have the term larynx height. Again, same thing. This is all the same thing we're talking about. Larynx height, some people call it that just because the thing the resonator we're playing with here, the thing we're changing the size of, is the larynx. And what literally happens is the larynx go up or the larynx go down. So people call it larynx height. I like to avoid that term just because if you tell people to raise their larynx, they will try to literally raise their larynx, and that's not how I want you to engage. I want you to think about the sound, make a bigger sound or a smaller sound, and the larynx will move on its own, okay? You don't control the larynx, it does it on its own, you control the sound, okay? And same with the weight. You don't control your quotient, that would be insane. You control the sound, okay? All of this is gonna be like that, okay? And this is the really, really big one where people try to control their body. Do not do that. You can't do that. No one can. There are so many muscles going on here. I know you think you can raise your larynx and you can just isolate that. And I so promise you, you can't. Because it's there's just so many, even the ones that move your larynx, there's ones right next to them that aren't the correct muscles that we're using here. Right next to them, okay? You can't feel it. I so promise you can't. You think you can. I thought I could. Everybody does, but you can't. Really focus on the sound, okay? To really drill this in, I did mention earlier how we control pitch. For those that have missed that bit, this will be perfect for you. But even if you earlier remember me mentioning how to move pitch, how do you move pitch? How do you do a higher pitch or a lower pitch? Actually, how in your lived experience, how have you been doing it before this workshop? If I told you, how do you go up in pitch or down in pitch? Probably you don't know. And yeah, that's correct, because that's not how you do this. You don't control your body, you control the sound. You just go to a higher pitch. And this is going to be the same. You just make a bigger sound or a smaller sound. And I'll tell you how, and I'll help you with that. But I really, really want you to focus on don't control your body, because you will mess it up. I messed it up. And usually what happens is extra muscles get involved, or the right muscles don't get involved. So for me, I actually had, and this happens too, when I was trying to move my larynx up, I was actually tensing. I wasn't doing anything with my larynx. I was tensing the muscles in the back of my neck and making my neck really stiff. That's not even anything to do with your voice. It was just making it hard for me to do this. I couldn't roll my neck properly. And that was it. That was all that was happening. I was just tensing that up. Some people tense up their jaw, which doesn't do anything for what we're trying to do. A lot of people, it's usually some spot in the neck that they'll tense up, because those are bigger muscles. They do movement swings. So when you're trying to tense something, that's what people tense. We shouldn't be squeezing. We shouldn't be tensing. We should barely even feel this. In terms of that actual larynx movement, let's take a look again. Here is, if I use my actual old voice, here is where my larynx is. Let's get pretty close to the camera. There's my larynx, okay? And then I'm gonna use my feminized voice. It moved up that much, okay? It's a really small movement. You're not feeling it. You're just not. Your body can feel these movements. That's 30 centimeters or something. That was a centimeter, an inch. It's a tiny movement, okay? You're not feeling it, all right? So don't try to control your body. I'll forever drill that into you, okay? Focus on the sound, all right? And I know that's tricky, but we'll get there, okay? So now we've talked about that a whole bunch. How do we control it? Okay, what is this sound? What are we doing? Okay, so remember the end goal is for us to have either a voice like this, or maybe like a voice like this, where we have this really large space, okay? Or we're going for a voice like this, where we have this really small space. Any of this is going to be this really, really small space. Again, but I changed the weight there, so you can hear like a heavy weight at a lighter weight. That bit doesn't matter, okay? We're going for the difference between this and the difference between this, okay? Really, really big, really, really giant, really, really small, small, tiny. Now, how are you going to do it, okay? First thing I want you to do, have a little think, give it a go. I'm not going to prompt you at all. What does it sound like for a really big dog, like a really big German Shepherd? What does it sound like when they pant? Do a little impression of a German Shepherd panting. Just give an impression of it. Have a go. Okay. I'll give you a couple more seconds. Actually, have a go at it right now. Even if you're watching on YouTube and you're watching this in like a month's time or a year's time, have a little go right now at home. I'm watching. Yes, you. Now, go for it. Big old German Shepherd. Do some panting. You probably made a sound kind of like this. Yeah, that kind of sounds like a German Shepherd panting. That's a pretty good impression. Well done. That's what that sounds like. What if it was a Chihuahua? What does it sound like a little Chihuahua or like a Pomeranian? What do they sound like when they pant? Have a go at it right now. Little Chihuahua. Probably just made it sound something like this. And yeah, that's what that sounds like. Big dog. Little dog. Have a look. Hang on. Camera to. You see that? Yeah, we just made it happen. You just changed styles. Right in that moment, you just did it. Okay. Now, there's a couple of issues with that, Joel. Well, it was one issue really. What you probably specifically did was you went. If I like slow it down, and then watch my mouth. Now that's a bit of a problem because we wanted to change our larynx stuff. My mouth's moving. And a big problem with that is I need that. That's how talking works. See me talking, my mouth is moving all over the place. So I don't want to mess with that because that's going to change your ability to like talk. And we definitely don't want that. Like if I was to say, let's say you were trying to get a larger size and you went like, and when you try to maintain that, and when you kept your face like this all the time, you're going to be talking like this. And this does not sound natural or normal. This is not how you normally say stuff. We don't want to do that, okay? And by reverse, okay, we don't want to be like trying to talk like this all the time. This also sounds very weird, very unnatural. We definitely don't want this to be happening either. We don't want anything to change but the way we talk, okay? So we're going to try to like isolate that. Make it so we're not going or, we're not going okay? So first thing to notice is like, play with that pants a little bit. See if you can like turn it into a word. Like maybe like hot or like hen. Hot. What did we just do? We whispered a word. Okay, panting is whispering. You just whisper the word ho or he or whatever it is you're whispering. Whispering's panting. Panting is whispering. That's how you make a panting sound. You just whisper. You whisper a word like ha or he or ha or something like that, depending on how you're panting. So, good to know. This is just whispering. All right. Let's, instead of having all this panting then, let's actually choose a word to whisper. We'll go for like just a little single syllable word like pot. Okay? Big pot. Pot, 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 pot. Little pot. Pot, 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 pot. Now this time, we haven't changed anything in our mouth. Because if we did, that pot would change. Pot, pot, pot. Pat, 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 pat. We'd have a word change. We'd go from pot to pat. Okay? Or pot to pat, maybe. So if we can keep it the same word, that means nothing's changed in our mouth. And there's our first thing that's going to be difficult. Because actually, your brain really wants to move your mouth right now. Because like that, it knows about that. You have a rough idea that like some words sound smaller than other words. Vowels like a, e sound small. And vowels like o, u sound kind of big. And even if this is your first time doing any of this, you probably agree with that statement. You probably intuitively like, yeah, I don't know what this fully means, but like, yeah, you're right. O, sounds bigger, whatever that means, compared to like a, e. And yeah, it's amount of space you use in your mouth to make those vowels. Like, yeah, literally those are bigger and smaller vowels. So your brain has some idea of size, and it's used to using your mouth. It knows how to do that for talking, and it has not done this larynx stuff before, and so it's going to try and cheat, and it's going to try to make you change your mouth. So you'll be going for like that big pot, little pot, 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 pot. You'll probably do something like that. Then you slow that down, pot, pot, or you'll probably go pot, 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 pot. That's not how you say pot. Pot isn't pot. It's just pot. It's not port. It's just pot. So try to really be strict with yourself. The word needs to say the same, okay? Pot, 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 pot. Just being said totally normally. Nothing's going to happen here. Literally, like, watch my face. Nothing happens. Pot, 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 pot. Because we don't want to change our face. We don't want to change our mouth. We don't want to change the word. Because you want to be able to do all of your different words. We want this to be what changes, okay? So really focus on that sound. We call this vowel warping, because the vowel, your brain really wants to change that vowel because it knows how to do that. It's used to doing that. And like genuinely make recordings of yourself, because your brain is going to be so determined that it's actually going to trick you and make you think in the moment that pot and pat are the same sound. Genuinely, I've done this. I've had students do this. And like literally, I'll make a recording of a student doing their first like attempt at this, and they'll go pot, 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 pat, 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 pat. And before I play the clip, I'll ask them like, how did that go? And genuinely, they have no idea. They thought they said pot the entire time, and they'll play it back and be like, what the hell? I'm saying pat. What? And that's, yeah, your brain tricks you. It will literally mush those two sounds together, so you can't even hear the difference. And trip you up like that. So if you're having that happening, if you're practicing a word and it's changing it, we're not just using pot here. We're using any single syllable word. The point is just we're practicing our vowels right now. We could do pot for that o. We could do tap for that a. We could do cheese for that e. We could do wood for that u. Just any single syllable of that word without vowel in the middle of it. That's what we're practicing here. We've got to make sure that word stays completely the same and nothing happens to it. That vowel stays totally the same. Okay. So if that's happening to you and your vowel is changing, and you sometimes see it on your face, like you're making a different shape of your mouth. What you're going to do is, as soon as you notice it, or as soon as you're not 100% confident that this is the same tap, for example, that you started with, okay? Pause, and whatever you're moving to, so tap kind of, usually it's when you go larger, it'll become like a terp kind of thing. We're going to do that intentionally, okay? Tap, terp, tap, terp. So, terp, terp. I guess if we're going like large, small to large, tap, 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 tap. Yeah? Practice, like intentionally go to the warp, intentionally go to the word you're trying to do, back and forth, so they're smushed together, like, oh, they both sound the same. We start bringing them apart again, and like, no, tup and tap, and these are separate sounds, okay? And that's how we're going to get past vowel warping, all right? So yeah, if you go for a larger sound, we start with that big dog, little dog, or that little dog, big dog, and then we turn that into a word, big word, little word, and then we just break it down to steps. So like, dog, 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 and we just get good at doing that. Okay, and if vowel warping happens, as soon as we notice it, we pause, go to a word we're warping into, go to a word we were trying to do, back and forth between the two, to get like nice and separate again. You can hear these are very separate. And then the word you were trying to do, continue with that one as you go bigger or smaller depending on what you're trying to do. Yeah. Any questions on that? That's going to be the beginning of how you try to play with size. Okay. Any questions at all? And as you get good at that, and you're like, yeah, I can take any word and I can whisper it big and I can whisper it small. Your next step's going to come in of taking it out of that whisper, because like it's great being able to like change your whispers and like masculinize or feminize your whisper, but we're trying to actually talk. So what you're going to do is go through your, let's say we're trying to go for smaller. We'll take our big, go to small. I don't know, I'll do pot again, I guess. When we're happy, we're nice and teeny tiny small. We're going to do a really long one. Keep it going for a little bit. Listen to it. Yeah, is that still sounding as small as it can be? Did I lose anything during that? No, I've still got it. Whenever you're happy with it, give it a good few seconds. Make sure you get stable. Okay? If you add a few seconds, you're happy with it, bring your sound in. And it's just a 0, 1, you just turn it on. Okay? There's no like sliding into your voice. It's just turn your voice on. Okay? Pot, pot. Okay, I'm really small. Well, let's say we're doing, I don't know, we were trying to get bigger. We'll use cheese again. Cheese. Okay, I'm really big now. Okay, yeah, I got nice and big in my voice. Yeah? And that's what we're going to play with, and that's what we're going to practice. Okay? Getting that size change. That's going to take a while. You need a lot of practice on that. Typically, in a phonation test, people have usually right before your sound kicks in, it'll all go away. And that's going to take some practice. And like looking for that, look for like, oh, did it go anywhere? Did I get like as small as I was in a whisper to be as small as I was out loud? And it's just going to take a lot of practice. Okay? And yeah, keep playing that. And then like once you've done your phonation tests, that's what we call that, a phonation test, where like right now, what's happening, when you actually whisper, your vocal folds, normally they're vibrating, and that produces that sound, that power source filter model. So we've made our source. When you whisper though, they just stay open. So you just have open tube. Okay? So we skip the source. We just have power, filter. And that's why we can really hear this change happening. Because when we're doing a whisper, we don't have a pitch. We don't have a sound. What you're hearing, none of that's pitch. Nothing to do with pitch is happening right now. I know for a lot of you it's probably going to sound like I just did pitch things. Nothing to do with pitch has just happened. Okay? It's all just about your size, about filter. Okay? Because you can't be producing pitch. Like your vocal folds that make that normal pitch, they're not doing anything. They're just open. They're not interacting with the air at all. They're not creating that truefold pitch. So we know it's not pitch because it can't be. Otherwise you wouldn't be whispering. That's the difference between a whisper and like speaking. Okay? So once we bring our voice in, we then try to continue what we were doing, keep it in our voice as we start doing some talking, and that's how we're going to practice. Yeah? Whether you're going large or small or whatever. Obviously, if you're androgynizing, look for somewhere in the middle, you know? Yeah. Or like if you're androgynizing, if you're already with a masculinized voice, just get a bit smaller, or like, you know, play with where you want to, how much smaller. That's going to be up to you, or where you define androgynous to be. Obviously, if you are currently have a smaller voice and you want to androgynize, just get bigger, and then like you decide where is like the right place for you. Yeah. Questions? Any questions? Does that make sense to everybody? How we change size or resonance or larynx height? Ooh, quiet chats. Everybody's gone to sleep. Hello, you awake? Hello. Aha, there we go. Makes sense so far? Nice. Thank you. It's all good. Nice. Yeah, any questions at all? I'll talk about some of the problems that people can run into. I make sense. Thank you. Yeah, vowel warping we've talked about. as like a common thing that can go wrong. That's most of you are going to run into that at some point. It's probably the most common thing I run into, which is why I talk about it straight away. Other things though are muddling this up with pitch, because like I've explained to you that this can't be pitch, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't goddamn feel like pitch or like seem like pitch, because you're just not used to size being a thing. So your brain's like, I don't know what this is. Is pitch? I know pitch. Fuck it, it's probably pitch, but it's not pitch. Your brain's just wrong there because it's like just not used to this as a thing that exists. So often that happens is as people go smaller, they go like, what's another word we haven't done yet? Wood. And then as they go into that phonation test, they'll go like this. And I'll go for this crazy high pitch. It's a kind of muddled pitch and size. And so it seems like they're supposed to be a really high pitch because it seems like that's where the smallness was. But there's nothing to do with pitch. Specifically, I would say when you're doing phonation tests, practice some like pre-decided pitches. Practice going in at like an E3 or maybe like a D3. Let me get my little pitch thing up so I can show you what that sounds like. Pitchreader.com. I super recommend if you need to like play with pitch, use pitchreader.com. It is just awesome. It works on mobile. It can play with sounds for you. It's just good. And I don't like voice tools or any of those things that say that they can gender your voice, because they can't. It's complete nonsense made up. They're so completely wrong. Never ever trust any of those, because all they're looking at is your pitch. We just talked about earlier how your pitch has almost nothing to do with the gendering of your voice. All of these things that we've done so far, none of them get acknowledged by voice tools or any app like that. Apps can't analyze your resonance, your size, because like at a very like deep scientific level, we don't actually fully understand what frequencies are being changed, and because we don't understand that, we can't tell a computer that, and so it can't analyze it. We just haven't got it fully figured out yet. We're getting close, but we haven't got it quite down yet. Voice research is really hard to do because like you can't both look at like the stuff you can't look inside, you can't like dissect and use a voice at the same time, because dissecting kind of means that they're not alive, you know. You can only, so we can't use a voice. So it's just voice research is really hard, and it's like one of those things that's really behind, because it's just you can't actually cut it open because otherwise you'll kill the person. Okay, so practice like intentionally that phonation test. Go for a specific note. So for example, let's do like a D3. That should be playing for YouTube at least. I can make it play for everyone actually. There we go. So that's a D3. Okay. What was it? Wood. Wood. Yeah. Or let's do like an A3. Wood. Wood. Yeah. So we can hear. I can do the A3. Wood. I can do the D3. Sorry. Wood. 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 And that's going to be pitch change. Now size can stay the same. Okay. Or like if you're trying to masculize, you're trying to go for a larger size. Okay. Maybe we did like a tip. We haven't done it. Yeah. Yeah. Tip, 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 tip. Tip. Tip, 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 tip. Tip, tip. So you can have both those different pitches at both of those different sizes. okay? Because you can do any pitch at any size because they're nothing to do with one another, okay? So one's a filter, one's a source, okay? So practice doing it at different pitches to like teach yourself that this is nothing to do with pitch and that the pitch doesn't change anything, okay? And that'll help you with pitch stuff. You can even try to like go in at a certain pitch and then do a little like a little tune afterwards, like tip, 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 without the size changing. Tip, 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 tip. Or the really cool one, this is hard to do, but you'll get it with practice. Pick one note and change your size, okay? This is one, wait until you've gotten really good at doing the whispers, and then you can start doing it outside of whispers, okay? Tip, 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 tip. Accidentally moved my pitch around at the end there because I ran out of breath, but you get the idea. Yeah, do you hear how like you can change size without the pitch changing? Because they're just different from one another. Tip, tip. Yeah? Once you can do that, you've mastered it, right? But that's, save that bit for later. That's the hardest thing to do ever. Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody? Do we get this whole pitch size being different from one another and nothing to do with one another? We can do any size at any pitch, or any pitch at any size. Make sense? Yeah. Thank you, Tiffany. Oh, wait, no, that was earlier. Oh, Tiffany, do you still understand? Makes sense? Nice. Okay, and then it's the usual one, tension. We talked about it before. Muscles tensing up. If you feel yourself squeezing to get smaller, or like trying to like stretch things out to get bigger, no, we don't want any of that. Okay? No squeezing, no pulling, no pushing, no expanding, don't try to move anything. Okay? Like, don't try to move anything. Stuff moves on its own. You focus on the sound. Okay? Your body can figure out how to make those sounds, but you focus on the sound. Okay? So no, you shouldn't feel anything happening. All right? No tension. We do not want tension. Okay? It's going to make weird, unnatural sounds, or it's not going to make any sound at all. And when you do tension, you end up doing that instead of size. So if you can stop yourself tensing up, stop yourself squeezing, stop yourself doing those things, you'll be able to move size more because you're doing that instead of changing your size. It's like, imagine we're on our path, changing size. Oh, we took a detour into tension. Oh, no. And now our size isn't moving. Bring ourselves back, relax, nice and easy, super relax, and then keep going smaller, okay? No detours, all right? And that's what this process is going to be like. It's going to be, you're going to be on a path, and then you're going to make a mistake, and you're going to make a detour, and then you're going to learn about mistakes so you can learn to move back and control it and not do that. Oh, and now you're going to make a different detour. Oh, no, okay, we're going to learn this detour. We're going to learn to control it, put it back, learn to not do that as we continue, and that's going to be the process, and that's how you're eventually going to get like to your biggest sizes or your smaller sizes. People with voices can do any pitch, and people with big voices can do any voice. If you're small voice, if you're big voice, either, you can do any pitch. We've traveled between different sizes by changing how vibration works. Don't worry about the vibrations. That's a common mistake. Or that's something that people teach that they should not be teaching. Everybody's bodies vibrates really differently. Like technically, in theory, you could control this with vibrations and like picking up on those vibrations for some people. In practice though, that doesn't work because everybody's body vibrates differently. So whatever you've been told in terms of like what vibration you want to be going for and how it should feel to vibrate, that's true for that person, maybe, if they're even correct, but it might be the complete opposite for you. You might actually need the complete opposite vibrations to make that thing happen. Or you might be like me And actually just nothing vibrates when you talk. I don't feel any vibrations. The only time I ever feel vibrations is when I'm using vocal fry. So if I go like this, here I can feel vibrations happening. And that's the only thing that makes vibrations happen for me. Just because of, I don't know, how I'm shaped, I guess. Because you'll notice if you look at people, we're all different shapes. And that means we all vibrate differently. Which means we can't you can't learn this by going for a certain vibration. Because actually you might vibrate differently. Because you're a different shape to somebody else. So don't worry about vibrations. The big thing, you're changing the sound. So focus on the sound. Always. If you're trying to, what am I supposed to be thinking about? Sound. It's always going to be sound. Anything you do, all this whole process, it's always going to be, we're changing the sound. Okay? The only time we're going to think of anything other than sound is, oh, I can feel something. I'm probably not meant to be able to feel that. So then what does that feeling sound like? And change the sound. So we'll notice feelings for looking for what not to do. We're looking for mistakes, but we're not going to try to control it. We're going to control the sound to make that go away. Yeah? always. You control the sound. You can notice the feelings, but you control the sound. Okay? And again, we're only noticing feelings to just look for problems. Like if it hurts, that's worth noticing, and we're going to do something about that. But again, we're controlling the sound to get rid of the pain. Yeah? Nice. Any other questions? Okay. Does that all make sense? Oh.
Smiles Salot 555 subscribed to the channel.
Oh, your thing got cut off. Sorry for that. Smiles a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing. Yeah, if you want to see more of this content, I do this currently for Pride Month. We're doing this every single week, and all of it stays as VODs on the workshop on the YouTube, and we also have our regular YouTube. Excuse me. We have a regular YouTube. What's the word I'm looking for? We have public lessons. So we do have a limit on how many public lessons we do. But we have one a week, and the next one will be tomorrow. We are teaching. Whose lesson is it tomorrow? I want to say it's Danger Majors. Maybe it's Fridays. I don't remember. They're currently rotating. Point is, there's going to be a public lesson tomorrow. So subscribe to YouTube so you can get notified about that. Yeah, nice. Yeah, thank you so much. Smiles a lot for that subscription. That's really cool. That's very cool. Okay, let's keep going then. So we've gotten good at size. We've mastered it. We're ready to move on. Okay, we can go small. We can go big. You may find, not everybody's going to find this, but for some of you, you may find that you definitely hit a ceiling. You know you hit a ceiling. You're absolutely certain. You checked in with me. And I'm like, yeah, you hit a ceiling there. It wasn't small enough. It wasn't big enough. And yeah, you're kind of right. Because larynx height is actually just one part of it. I call that like the core size. But there's actually another thing as well. We can change another thing, not just the larynx. Because the important thing is we don't change the mouth. Everything has to be before the mouth because we need that for talking. But there's another area as well we could shrink down or expand. And that's called the, think about our vocal tract again. We have that tube. Now, really, a tube is a bit of an oversimplification because, like, yeah, you could go up and out of the mouth. We could also go out of the nose. And, like, if we go backwards, we go through the mouth. There's another hole. We could go the swallowing route. Obviously, we don't want to muddle those up, the swallowing and the breathing holes, but they are two different holes. And so, all of these, there's a space where they all meet. Okay? A little gap. And we call this the pharynx. Okay? It's like right at the back. Right? And the pharynx, think of it as like a roundabout. Okay? It has exits. So we could go, maybe we're going for mouth exit. We have the oropharynx. Maybe we go the nose exit. We're going with nasopharynx. Maybe we're going with the larynx exit. So we're going with the laryngopharynx. Okay. Maybe we're going for swallowing. We're going with the esophagus. Okay. That's just, it doesn't have a esophagus or whatever. For some reason, that's still just pharynx. I don't know why that didn't get a special name. But just scientists, I guess. Yeah, we have those exits. Okay. One of those exits, oropharynx. We're going to play with that. Okay, so OPC, or OPE, stands for oropharyngeal constriction, or oropharyngeal expansion. Now, I don't actually like those terms. I wish I could rename it, but it's already been named, so whatever. More specifically, take a little look at that GIF, okay? You can see this dude's mouth. You see these these claw things that are coming in and out. Yeah, you see those little claws. You see something coming in and going out, and going in and going out. Okay, ignore those. It's not that. You can see the dangly thing. Little thing. It's kind of like going back and then going down, and go back and going down. You see that? Yeah, it's not that either. But behind those things, do you see there's this archway? And it's expanding and it's narrowing. Expanding and narrowing. Yeah? Right at the back, behind the dangly, behind the little claw things, there's this archway. Okay? And it is that. That's the one we're looking at. Okay? That little archway is called the palatopharyngeal arch. Big old name. Don't worry about it in the slightest. You could forget that tomorrow if you want to. We don't care about the name. The point is, there's that archway. And it gets narrower, and it expands. Okay? And that has an impact on your voice. Specifically, it's used in a lot of things. Even like not voice stuff. It's also used as like part of swallowing, part of drinking. It's used in like a lot of different things. But in terms of your voice, it's one of the things, not the only one, but it's one of the things that impacts. Do you remember earlier I mentioned how like a, e, they're kind of small compared to like o, u, u. They're kind of big. And your palatopharyngeal arch is one of the things contributing to that. One of the things that makes those bigger ones bigger and smaller ones smaller is a palatopharyngeal arch. Literally, it gets narrower when you go a, e, and gets larger when you go o, u, u. Okay? Now, it's not the only thing making those vowels bigger and smaller. It's just one of them. And it's going to be a really useful one for us because we could change it, which means all of our vowels are going to get a bit smaller, but they're still going to be the same difference from one another. Or they're all going to get a bit bigger, but they're still going to be the same difference from one another. So a is still an a. It's just like a smaller a or a bigger a. That little change there is going to allow us to have all of our voice a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. And that just takes us over the edge into what we were going for. Okay? Now, for the androgenizers, you probably don't care about this. But for masculizers and feminizers, this is going to be that thing that sends you over the edge into getting what you're looking for. Okay? When you get this right, it's like, I just couldn't quite get it. Oh my God, this is it. Holy, this is the thing. It just gives you that little boost into what you were trying to achieve. Okay? Now, what does this actually sound like? Okay? Brace yourselves. This is the most confusing thing we will talk about today. This is the absolute most confusing thing. Okay? Main reason for this is because this is such a not known thing. This is so not something we talk about ever or really utilize ever that we don't even have words for it. And that's difficult because I can't tell you what to listen for because there's not even a word for it. I can't tell you the thing because there's not a word for it. Okay? So what we're going to go for is I'm going to do a thing, and what I want you guys to do in chat, listen and just tell me if you hear a thing. You're not going to know what it is. You're not going to know how to describe it. You're not going to have any words for it. You'll just be able to say yes or no. That's all you'll be able to do. But give that a go, okay? Try it now. Really, really listen, okay? Everybody, pay attention now. Really participate in this bit because, you're going to need some focus right now, okay? So, In terms of those like vowel sizes, E is going to be the smallest vowel. Or is in like mining for some ore, or like a rowing oar, is going to be the biggest. Okay, so we're going to try and transfer some of that smallness of an E, and like use that to get everything a bit smaller. Okay, just listen for. I'm going to say a sentence. The sentence is going to be E speaking from E, and you're going to listen for how like something about that E sound. Even though E isn't there anymore, I'm saying other words that don't contain E, you'll notice just something about it is still there. And you can hear something about that E still existing. It'll be like it's like you've seasoned it in the same way, or we're using the same color as E, whatever that means. Okay, have a listen. E speaking from E, and then you can hear in my voice now something about that E. You can hear something's happened to my voice. Something's very clearly happened to my voice. And you can kind of hear that it came from E. Again, E speaking from E, and then something about it is still there. Olive says E vocal posture. It actually isn't that. E is like a very smiley posture. E speaking from E. But then I'm going to do things that aren't that, and you can still hear something about that E sound is there. Like I could say like word, totally different vocal posture. But you can still hear something about that E sound in there. Now you might not quite have it yet. Have a listen to the opposite, okay? And I'll go back and forth and you'll start to notice it more. So now opposite, or speaking from or, and we're going to try to keep something about that or sound, even though it's not or, and I'm saying words, saying. I'm saying words that don't have any of the same shape as or, and yet something about that or sound is still there. You can hear it permeating through my words. The flavor of or is present still. E speaking from E, and then like something about that E is still there. You guys, can you hear what I'm putting down? Can you taste it? Can you smell it? Yeah. Even if you can't really describe what's happening, can you hear something's happening? And you can recognize it's coming from the E or coming from the or, whatever that means. It's totally fine if it's literally just like a, yeah. Not hearing it at all? We'll do a bit more. Yeah, there's some sort of eification. Yeah, exactly. Aurelia, have a little, another lesson. So we're looking for something about that E still being there, even if E itself isn't, and something about that or still being there. I'm going to move between them. E speaking from E, and then we can hear something about that E still there in my voice. My voice is very clearly different to how it was just a moment ago. And E speaking from E, you can really hear that E sound still present. You got it? Yeah. Or speaking from or, then you can really hear something still there, even though like I can say television, you know? That's what we're going for there. Okay? OPC, OPE. OPC is going to be for feminizers that want to get smaller. OPE is for masculinizers that want to get bigger. You know? Constrict, get small. Expand, get big. I don't like the word constriction because we've just been talking about how you don't want to constrict things, you don't want to squeeze things, you don't want to tense things. And this is definitely one. Don't try to control it. Don't try to control your body. You're gonna fuck it up. This is such a, you gotta just go by vibes. And that's why this is a really hard thing to learn. It's just vibes. But it is a natural thing that's happening. Could you do an I word in the O flavor? I don't know what you are asking me for. I'll use all of those in each of them, and then hopefully that does what you're asking for. E speaking from E. I could literally say, could you do an I word in the O flavor? And then or speaking from or, and then we can do that. I see what you mean. I could literally say the sentence again. Could you? Oh, so flavor. E speaking from E, flavor. Or speaking from or, flavor. You can hear I'm saying flavor the same, but something's different about the voice. But flavor's still the same flavor. E speaking from E, flavor. Or speaking from or, flavor. It's all the same flavor, but something's happening. It sounds bigger or smaller, but not in the same way as before. And if you want an actual description of what's happening, that's what's happening. We're changing the size. Remember, we've got this tube, okay? Our vocal tract. We're changing the size, but of a different area. And so that's why we kind of have that same size change sound, but it sounds different because it's a different bit of a vocal tract that's getting bigger or smaller. Yeah? It's that plato pharyngeal arch. And that's what you're hearing. So it kind of sounds similar to like, if I do like a really, this is my larynx stuff, this is core size, and then we're moving it over to like smaller size over here. It kind of has that vibe to it. E speaking from E, but it's different. We're having this over here, or we're having like this over here, or speaking from or, having this over here. It's similar, but different. If we go back to our whispers, remember we skip the source in whispers, which means we just hear the filter, which makes this way more obvious, okay? Let me do the same thing, but in the filter, okay? What I'll do, I'm going to change core size. And then you're going to notice that, like, I'm going to go from big to small. But listen to how, like, I'm going big to small in one way. And then I'm going, like, from where I was to even smaller, but differently. Kind of like we've got, like, it's all size. It's all going, like, this way. But there's definitely two segments, okay? Or, like, there's a gear shift or whatever. We'll do... pot is a really... because it's quite an open vowel. You really notice it. You notice that? There was like two different sizes there. They were both size, but there was one and then there was the other. It's kind of like we hit a ceiling. I'll do it slower. Listen for how I kind of hit a ceiling. And then like I go past it, but different. It's like if we think of like a literal building, we would go to like the top floor and then we climb out the window and get onto the roof. Weird analogy, but like visualize it as I do this. Yeah? I did a pretty good one there, won't I? So hopefully you could that was really obvious. Like it got smaller and then it differently got smaller. Now it's literally just two different bits of a tube getting smaller. Yeah? When whispering, you can hear vowels without your mouth or tongue moving. I don't know what you mean by that, Liliquando. I'm not sure what you mean. The vowel should be the thing that, like, the vowel shouldn't change. Like, it's still going to be o. So, like, pot is still going to be pot. It's all pot. Or, gun. No, I shouldn't use that. We're on YouTube. Run. It's all run. Yeah. Maybe there's a clarification on that. Or maybe that process answered your question. I'm not sure. Yeah, so when you're playing with this, I would say do your core size thing that you were practicing before, and you've already mastered that before you got to here, okay? Do it for whisper. Get to that ceiling, okay, that you were already getting to really easily. We'll use another word. I would say if you're trying to, for this bit, for OPC or OPE, if you're trying to do OPC to get extra small, start with a larger vowel. You're going to have more room to work with because the larger vowels are naturally the larger vowels. So you can they've got a bit more room to shrink before turning into a different vowel. And if you're trying to do OPE, try and expand, start with like a smaller vowel. Okay. So if we're going to do OPC, let's use door. Okay. and you kind of hit that ceiling. Okay, now that you've hit the ceiling, whisper the sentence E speaking from E. E speaking from E. And you'll notice a huge change in the sound. And it almost sounds like a different whisper. E speaking from E. And you're way smaller suddenly. E speaking from E. Okay. Now that way smaller you just got, try to do doors like that. E speaking from E. Do, 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 do. E speaking from E. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Make sure you didn't accidentally go into like a da instead of a do. Make sure that E didn't penetrate, but the smallness of the E. That's what you're trying to bring over. Okay? Play with that. That'll help you get used to this. We can even try like see it was still door, or like shove an E in like the beginning. Dio, 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 Dio. And you can use that E to help the O get smaller. And you can do it like the E gets a bit smaller when you bring the O over to it. And the E gets a bit smaller, and you bring the O over to it. And you can like use it as a little ladder to help you sneak into the OPC. Because again, E naturally has a ton of OPC, so we're using it to help out the O. Yeah. Not when whispering a vowel, but when you're just pushing air through it, similar to what we did before with size. Okay, so that pushing air, that's what whispering is. You're whispering, huh, huh, huh. Yeah? Or if you're going like, you're whispering, ha, ha, ha. That pushing air, that is what whispering is. Like, play with that. Play with pushing air. Then start moving things around, and you'll notice it's whispering. It's the same thing. That's why you can hear vowels, because like, yeah, you know, you're whispering. Any other questions? I know this bit is really complicated, and if this is really confusing to you, like, don't start doing any of this stuff until you've already done everything we've already talked about in this workshop. Don't try to do OPC if you're new. This is like the most advanced thing that you're going to be doing. It is the most confusing thing you're going to be doing. And if you haven't already done core size, and like a lot of it, and you haven't like got that down and really mastered it, this bit's going to be really hard to engage with because you're not even going to know what to listen for properly. In my demos, you probably, because I've, tried to do really extremes so you can really notice it. But like, yeah, don't skip ahead to this bit. I know it really gets like the, oh my God, we finally got it. But don't try to do it too early. Because this is going to make no sense. It's going to be confusing as hell if you haven't already done the other stuff. So common things that people get wrong when doing this. Again, vowel warping becomes really common. People try to, like, they're trying to bring back something about the E or something about the O. They end up actually just bringing E or O. They end up like E speaking from E, and then we go and talk like this, and we end up just doing this all the time, and now the E itself has been carried across. And that's not what we wanted. Or like the O speaking from O, and then we end up talking like this, and we don't want this to be happening, okay? We don't want to carry the actual O itself. It's just that sort of like that colour of E, or that background flavour, or, whatever silly nonsense sentence we want to say. Because, like, yeah, none of that makes sense, but it kind of makes sense, Yeah, we don't want to actually bring the word across. We don't want our vowels to start warping. Okay. And then the other big thing that people mess up when doing this is just confusing it with the thing we were doing before, and they just do more of core size instead of actually doing any OPC. That's why really get good at core size, have a really good understanding of it, be really like, I can do this without even thinking before you do the OPC stuff, so that if you accidentally do core size, you already know it because you already know core size, and as soon as you hear yourself changing it, you know that that's what it was you changed. Okay, you're looking for it to be smaller, but in a brand new way that you hadn't done before. That means you'll be doing OPC. Okay. All right. Any questions? Hopefully some of that made sense to people. I know this is like the most confusing bit. Hopefully some of that made sense. Not looking into this until way later. That's totally fair. That's totally fair. Yeah, again, do your core size first. Do your weight first. Then come to this. Because this is the advanced bit. This is the most advanced bit. This is the hardest part. But when you get it, oh boy, does it make a big difference. You want to talk about X speaking from X later? Yeah. Oh, you want to like have a chit chat about it? Yeah, we can do that. We'll have to see about time though, because I'm teaching actually kind of soon. I also only got 4 hours sleep last night, so I am entirely off of second wind energy right now. We'll see. ADHD meds are very useful for when you have a lack of sleep. Okay, let's keep going. Unless you have specific questions, or if there's bits they want me to clarify. But I know this is a hard section. It makes so much more sense when you've been doing core size already. But yeah. Okay, all right, let's keep going. So, fullness. At this stage, do not approach fullness until you've done your steps. Okay, so you've mastered weight. You did your softies. Okay, you got that down. You did a couple of weeks of softies. Nice. All right, you're in a good vocal like health situation, and you can warm up. Then you do your weight. You get really good at that. You know how to control it. Nice and easy. Not a problem. You got good at the core size. It took a while, but you got it down. Now it's second nature. You even got that OPC down, or that OPE. You've nailed that stuff. It's you've cracked this. And you'll probably find at this stage, you bring those things together, and you've got all the things to make a masculine or a feminine voice, but we need to put them together correctly. Okay, this is where fullness comes into it. Now, probably 99% of you don't need to worry about this bit because you probably intuitively put them together correctly. But just in case, fullness is this idea that think about go back to like what made all of this a thing, and it was testosterone exposure. Just testosterone exposure, which means that for everybody, it kind of happens pretty uniformly because like it's all the same area. It's all getting the same amount of testosterone exposure because it's just your levels of testosterone, in your blood. So everything is being impacted by the same quantity. Like the weight is getting heavier as the size gets bigger, and it's the same like quantity of testosterone that did both of those things, so they both moved in unison. And so because of that, in human voices, there is like a sort of like a relationship between weight and size, in that just you typically hear them sort of like in balance with one another, where a size is just as small as it is light, or a weight is just as heavy as it is large. Okay, and we kind of have this like through line, and we call it fullness, and it's just where voices typically sound. And so we typically think of it as being more normal or natural, because this is just where most voices are, because they've had the same amount of testosterone exposure in all parts of their body, because that's just how testosterone works. It's the same amount wherever it is, Okay, so this is only going to be relevant if you notice that there is an obvious oddness to your voice. Generally, if you have like, let's say you have quite a light voice, but it's not that small, really. We've gone lighter than we went small. So we're too large for how small we are. Or we're too light for how large we are, depending on which you were trying to do. If I go way to the extreme, so I have a large voice and a light weight, we'd end up with a voice like this. And you can kind of hear, this is a very weird sounding voice. You probably never heard any actual person talk like this, because it's just wouldn't really make sense. Like, how is it that they had this level of testosterone exposure for their larynx, but they had a do no testosterone exposure for their vocal folds. It's all the same area, so you would never naturally hear this. It doesn't occur. But obviously we have control, so we can do this in theory. You just never hear anybody have this voice, typically. It sounds unusual. It sounds kind of hollow. It sounds kind of empty, like there's something missing from it. Very like underfull. And that's, yeah, it's an underfull voice. We would often hear this for cartoon characters. Like voice actors will use this sometimes for characters. Think like Yogi Bear, I'm smarter than the average bear. Or like think Patrick, no, this is Patrick. We can think of a variety of different cartoon characters that sound like that. Because generally when voice actors try to make a voice cartoonish, this is what they use. They mess with the fullness. They either make it like too, like, they'll put things out of balance and it makes them sound cartoonish. We go the other way, where we have like a really small voice, but a really heavy weight. Doesn't make sense. We've gone for like the masculized version of one thing, but the feminized version of another thing. And then we end up with a voice kind of like this. It sounds it's very grating. It's very like jarring. We can think of like SpongeBob kind of sounds like this. That's my best version of his laugh. I know that's terrible, but I can't think of what he actually says. I'm a goofy goober, yeah, you're a goofy goober. I don't remember the song. But you get the idea. SpongeBob kind of sounds like this. Or Gary. There you go. We could think of like cartoon gnomes. They kind of sound like this. Or like elves, as in like Santa's workshop elves. They kind of sound like this, like the little elves. You get the idea. We can think of a variety of cartoon characters. Nerd voice. If somebody's voice acting a nerd, they'll often do this kind of a voice. It's got all that buzziness, but it's really small. Yeah, there's typical overfull voices. So this isn't something to worry about unless you are already noticing it. So if you've done all your stuff and you notice it just sounds a bit cartoonish, well, which one is it? Is it like a really intense, really like overfull, like there's so much in there kind of a sound? Maybe we're overfull. So if you're trying to feminize, maybe you need to like either ease off on some of that smallness, because maybe you've just gone too small for how light you are, or maybe we need to add some more lightness to get to be light enough for how small we went. Depends on like if you're trying to get like further in there or like back it off a little bit. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you're gonna maybe you're finding that there's just like an empty sound. There's like an underfullness, there's like a hollowness. And then depending on where you're going, maybe you were trying to go for a masculine voice, you end up with a hollow voice. So probably need to add a little bit of weight, or maybe ease off on the size to make them in balance with one another again. Is overfull the same as nasal? No, totally different. The reason you think it's the same as nasal is because of something else that it sounds similar to, that also isn't nasal, but for some reason everybody calls it nasal. So there's something called twang. Twang kind of sounds like this. Think of like think like a witch voice, or I am a robot. Robots kind of talk like this. Or think about like a baby, like how voice actors would do like a baby like throwing a tantrum, like and it kind of produces this kind of a voice here. It's a totally different thing to overfull, but it does kind of sound similar. Excuse me. So overfull kind of sounds like this. We have this. So if I go like, if I take my size right now and then I just add a bunch of buzziness to it, this is going to be that overfull sound. This is going to be that twang sound. Like, there's an intensity to twang. They do sound really similar. They do sound quite similar. But they are different things. You can have a light voice doing twang. That's what I was doing there. Think of Mabel from Gravity Falls. It doesn't really sound overfull. There's like a different thing, and that's that twanginess. Okay? Now, where nasality comes into this, people call twang nasality. Like people say that a twangy voice is a nasally voice. And even like you'll hear voice teachers saying that, you'll hear singers saying that, you'll hear literally voice scientists saying that, and it is complete nonsense. I don't know where this concept has come from. It doesn't have anything to do with your nose whatsoever. Twang happens like top of the larynx. It's your airy epiglottic folds. Airy epiglottic folds. That's it. It's just nothing to do with your nasal tract at all. Nasality. If we're adding nasality, we're adding more air going through the nose. So it kind of sounds like this. Think of like a villager from Minecraft. Oh, we kind of have this kind of a voice here, but it's all coming through the nose. It kind of makes it hard to talk if you're doing a lot of it, because like you don't get to control it with your mouth because it's all going through the nose instead. Or think about like that Charlie Brown teacher impression. We have this kind of horn kind of a sound. That's nasality. We could also have like, so I guess hyper nasality has lots of nasality. Normal speaking has some level of nasality, depending on what words you're saying. We could have like hypo nasality, so the lack of nasality, no nasality. That makes like a blocked nose sound, because obviously we've blocked off the nasal tract because there's no nasal sound, so it sounds like you've got a blocked nose. So it kind of end up sounding like this. It kind of sounds like I've got a blocked nose. Sound kind of ill, because like yeah, we've blocked off the nose. Yeah, so that's what nasality is. That's what twang is, which isn't twang, which isn't nasality, and then none of them are overfull. But it does kind of, overfull sounds similar to twang, which people call nasality, which is where all of that confusion is. So hopefully that was a clear enough explanation there. Let me know if that got too complicated. Makes sense? Okay, nice. But yeah, basically, if you notice your voice sounds odd or kind of cartoonish, examine fullness. If it doesn't, you like at this stage you created a normal sounding masculine or androgynous or feminine voice, you can totally skip this bit. This doesn't apply to you. This only is like a diagnosing an issue type thing, where like if there is an abnormality to your sound, because we don't even need to be perfectly full. We don't need like a perfect amount of like that perfect through line. There's a significant area away you could be, but like so long as you're in the right like quadrant, you're totally fine. So long as to you don't sound cartoonish. Like if you feel like something's wrong, this is very cartoony, this is very like hollow or empty, this is very like intense, like way too much of something, then we examine fullness. Okay, only then. Only if there's something wrong. Fullness, we could then be like, is it fullness? Yeah. Otherwise, you can skip this bit. Does that make sense? It's a pretty simple concept. It's just size and weight want to be reasonably in balance with one another. And like again, you can diverge from that quite a lot. A lot of you will have heard of Celine Silva from what are they called again? Online vocal. What's the last bit? OVC, online vocal coach. Is that it? Yeah. OVC, online vocal coach. That Discord server. Celine De Silva. Quite a popular vocal coach. You've probably all heard of her. She's a little bit underfull, a little bit hot, not a lot, teeny little bit. And she did it on purpose. She likes it. To her, it sounds more authoritative, and it gives her, it makes her feel more like it sounds more mature, as she's described it. To her, it's just subjective. She feels like it sounds a bit more mature, and so she likes it as her voice as a teacher to give her that extra maturity. I wouldn't say that that's like a fundamental like more mature voices sound hollow. That's not really a thing. But like everybody has their own subjective experience, you know. So like you might just have that association. She happens to, so she went for that. So like you do have a lot of wiggle room. You can be a bit hollow or a bit overfull, and you might actually quite like that. So like it's only if you think there's an issue. Yeah. Okie dokie. All right, let's keep going then. So at this stage, you've learnt weight, you've learnt course size and OPC/OPE. You've put it all together. You can make your feminine voice or your masculine voice or androgynous voice. You can make them. Now let's make it your own. Because like, there isn't the feminine voice. There's not the masculine voice. There's not the androgynous voice. There's like a whole bunch of them. There's a huge variety. Okay? I actually say, maybe I should move this section to the start. I don't know. I would actually say your very first task, before you even do the solvities, have a think about what you actually want. What voice do you want? Do you want like a really hyper femme voice? Think like, hey, it's your girl, Z, from Trans Voice Lessons. Do you want her voice from Trans Voice Lessons? You want her voice? She's got that really hyper feminine voice. Especially in her earlier videos. She backed it off a little bit in the future. But that's like really, really hyper femme. Maybe you want that. Maybe whatever. Have a think about that. Okay? So, customization. Okay? Have this already in mind. Okay? Already know where you're going. And that's genuinely really important because, like, if you don't, you're going to run into an issue as you're doing all of this. Let's say you're masculizing. And your only goal is just, and I bet this applies to a whole bunch of you. I think we mainly got feminizers today, but like you'll have the reverse of this, where the goal is just a passing male voice or like a masculine voice. That's not a voice. That's not a voice. What does that sound like? Like, play a clip of it. Masculine passing voice. Can you play that voice? That's not a voice. That's a category of voices. You can't present to me that voice. And that's a big old problem because actually you don't have anything to compare against. You don't have a goal. You have a zone. And that makes things a lot harder because you literally can't, like, here's a clip of my voice. Here's a clip of a voice I want. What are the differences? What do I need to do? Because you don't have a goal. So cause I come across, like, 80% of my students come to me initially with this goal of like, I want a feminine voice or I want just a female passing voice, you know, a cis passing voice. And that is not a goal. That's not a voice. There isn't a feminine voice. That's an assessment of voices. Yeah. Think way back when you went to school. What was that thing they told us? Somebody reminded me last week, and I've already forgotten. For like specific goals. What was it? It was what's the thingy? Somebody's got to know. Somebody in chat. Think what am I trying to say? But like it has to be specific. Smart goals. Yes. Somebody will always remember this for me. Thank you. Smart goals. It needs to be specific. Okay? It needs to be measurable. It needs to be... What's A? Accurate? That's not going to be it. Achievable? Whatever A is. Specific, measurable. Something else. Achievable? Sure. Whatever. Okay, we're going to get rid of achievable because if you've heard any voice, your voice can do that. Like, I promise you, whatever you... Like, you can do so much more than you think you can. Because, like, for human voice, here's, like... Let me draw a square in VR, okay? Here's a square. Inside of this square is every voice you've ever heard, okay? Now here's a big old square, big old rectangle, I guess. Here's what your voice is capable of, okay? Big, huge, massive. And every voice you've ever heard is in this little square here. So any voice you've ever heard, you can do, because you can do like way beyond it. Okay. So if it exists, if you can imagine it as a voice that exists, it's achievable. Okay. The most hyper feminine voice in the world and the most hyper masculine voice in the world, you already can do both. So all of it's achievable. R and T. Oh, T is probably time. You set yourself an amount of time. It's the start bit that's the important bit, okay? You want a specific goal. You want a measurable goal, okay? Cis passing is not a measurable goal. It isn't. Because, like, I promise you, if you try to do that, you're going to just, like, let's say it was cis passing was your goal. You're going to try to just like, oh, relevant time bound. Thank you. You're going to just pursue it endlessly because you're never going to actually have anything to tell you that you did it because you don't have anything to compare against. And that's your issue. Watch my past workshops, watch for like little feedback sections. I would say, I don't know, 1 in 3 workshops, we have somebody come along with like the most hyper feminine voice you've ever heard in your life. And they're like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do next. I'm trying to sound feminine. I don't know what to do. And like, yeah, because all you're trying to do is sound feminine. And that is not, I can't play sounds feminine, you know? I can give you a feminine voice, but it's not going to be like the canon feminine voice. That doesn't exist. So you don't have a specific goal. And that's a problem. Okay. So I'm drilling into all of you right now. Cis passing is not a goal. Feminine is not a goal. Masculine is not a goal. You could go for, I want to sound like me, and I want to keep the authentically me quality to my voice, but I want it to be like a feminine version of that. And you're going to need to be more specific. I want like a hyper feminine version of it. I want like a more typically feminine version, like nothing extreme, you know? So like my goal was I really wanted to keep authentically sounding like me in the same voice, but just like a feminine version. And not like an extremely feminine, just like a, you know, typically feminine version. And it's specific enough that I could imagine that sound. And so long as you can do that, or like, you know, so long as you can like, for any variable you're working on, you could picture, or you could like play that sound in your head, or even like, you know, because it doesn't have to be like, oh, I want this person's voice. Maybe it's just like, oh, I want this thing in this person's voice, and this thing in this person's voice, and this thing. That's fine. Because then like when you're working on that thing, just like you can compare. That's the important thing. You have something that you can compare with. Even if it's just like something that you can think of. As long as you can actually like play that sound in your mind. You can hear it saying words. You can compare against that. Yeah. Really important. Okay, what are some of the things we could be thinking about? You can do any voice you want. Anything you want. Some common things are fry is probably my most... these are literally in the order that I normally get as requests. So fry, either people like really hating the fry in their voice and wanting rid of it, or really wanting fry in their voice and loving it, or having it in their voice and it's important to them that they keep it. So think about fry. Fry is this sound here. It's that popping, crackling sound. People have very strong feelings about it, it seems. Either loving or hating. Personally, I'm a fry lover. You can hear it in my voice. It crops up quite a lot, and I'm a big fan of it. Pitch, I talked about it earlier. I don't think of this as a gendered thing. I put this in the customization bit. All of these bits are the things that are nothing to do with the gendering of the voice. They're just other things. The reason I put pitch here is have a listen to my voice right now. The astute of you will have noticed. This is quite low pitch. This is like near the bottom of my pitch range. That's where I speak at. This is about as low as I can get without going into that grave extension. Where are we here? Let me see. It's probably about a C3. You can hear I'm already like, because I'm such a lightweight, because I've reduced my weight, I can't go as low of a pitch, so I'm already near the bottom of where I can go. So this is a C sharp 3. Is about the lowest I can go without changing my weight. And when you normally hear me speaking is around, it moves a lot more when I'm doing workshops because I've got my presenter voice on, my YouTuber voice. But generally we're hearing like F3, E3. If you're going higher, maybe G3. That's kind of where my voice exists. If you hear me in ordinary day-to-day, generally it's around E3, F3. Pretty low pitches. Yeah, you can sound... Feminine voices can be low pitch. Or if I was to use a, like... Wait. Let me double check. Does this sound ordinary masculine? It's a bit off, but whatever. A masculine voice, and then I start moving the pitch higher. And then if I'm speaking over here with a more masculine voice, this doesn't now sound less masculine. It just is a higher pitch. And that's like, you get the idea. So your pitch can really be absolutely anywhere. And it just isn't going to change the gender perception of your voice. In fact, like, specifically low-pitched feminine voices are really building in popularity. People really, really like that shit. Yeah, so go nuts if you want. Put your pitch wherever you want it to be. You want a high pitch, go for a high pitch. If you want a low pitch, go for a low pitch. Doesn't affect the gendering. Just do what you want. Yeah. Okay, breathiness. That's another common one that people request to either have or not have. Usually it's not like crazy amounts. Like, nobody really wants a voice like this. Very, very... I've never had a student ask for that. But some people want just a little bit of breathiness. Maybe they want just something a little bit like this, which is just a small amount of breathiness added into the voice. And this one's quite popular. Especially people like lower pitches often also like breathiness. And I think that's because, like, there is a particular voice that might be cropping into some of your heads. Get your minds out the gutters. That features a breathy voice with a little bit of a lower pitch and occasionally a sprinkle of fry. You know what I'm doing. There's no surprise that those are my top 3 requests because they all happen to go together for a very specific voice. Yeah, so if you're wanting that voice, it's breathiness, small amount of it, pretty stable, pitch being a bit lower and also not fluctuating too much, speech slowed down a little bit, and just, if you want to like accentuate a word, add fry to it. That's how you get that voice. Okay. Yeah, breathiness is a thing. Pretty simple. It's just the sound of air in your voice, that breath being there. That's breathiness. Twang. We talked about twang earlier. I know it sounds pretty crazy. Twang is like really, really, it's intense. It's there. But we do hear that in some voices. If you think of, mentioned earlier, Mabel from Gravity Falls, her voice actress has twang in her voice. I'm sure she's done a few different things. She's not just Mabel. It's just a thing she's known for. She's got a bunch of twang. Gotta go. No worries, Laurie. Thank you so much for being here. If you think of, I always forget her name. I'm just not going to bother trying to remember her name anymore. Darcy from the Marvel Universe, the MCU. She, the person who was friends with Thor, the girl that Thor was going out with in the first 4 films. There's a lot of dots to get to her. We had Thor, and then he was all getting datey with Jane Foster, and then I guess she dropped out of the MCU and then came back. Her friend, the scientist chick, Darcy, she stayed in, she was in WandaVision. That character, she's got a whole bunch of twang in her voice. She also plays one of the characters in Two Broke Girls. She is one of the Two Broke Girls. Yeah, bunch of twang in her voice. Yeah, there you go, Tiffany. Yeah. And then the other go-to example is, I don't remember her name, but there is a British comedian with a bunch of it. If you know who it is, then you can put it in chat. I don't remember her name, but there's a British comedian. She's got a whole bunch of it. Yeah. So yeah, sounds pretty crazy, but it is actually something that pops up in people's voices, and in quite large quantities. So if you like their voices, maybe you really like twang. You got to play with that. And obviously accent. That's pretty important to a lot of people. Either really preserving your accent and making sure you have the same accent, or really getting rid of your accent. They often get pretty strong. Does she play Philomena Trunk? No, not her. Different person. I haven't heard her voice in ages. I don't think she has twang though. But yeah, accent is like a big one. But we all know about accents. And there is definitely a big misconception that you gotta sound like a valley girl to feminize your voice. I don't know why masculizers didn't get a version of this, but for some reason, valley girl is a thing. And it's not true. It's complete nonsense. You don't need to sound more American. You don't need to sound more valley girl. None of that's real. That's complete nonsense. I think where it came from, it is pure guess. It's just all I can think of. There's a lot of like on social media. There's just more Americans because of all the rich places, that's the biggest, so there's a lot of Americans online, and so there's a lot of American voice teachers, and where in America are you going to be most accepting of like trans people, so you're more likely to have more gender affirming voice teachers. It's that West Coast area, where that Valley Girl accent is more prominent, and I think that's the reason why the Valley Girl thing happened. Valley Girl is technically more on the like closer to hyper feminine end, so I guess that could be an element of it. That's just like a feature of that accent. But you don't have to sound like a Valley Girl. You'll notice I don't sound like a Valley Girl. I sound British. I sound like an ordinary English person, ordinary English chick, because you get women outside of West Coast America and they don't sound like they're from West Coast America. Yeah. So your accent doesn't have to change. You can still sound British or German or Scandinavian or Chinese, or the list could go on forever. You can still sound like that, and that's totally fine, and none of that has to change. Or you could totally get rid of that if you really hate it. Whatever you want to go for. I know British people like me, we really value our accents. I have a pretty neutral British accent, but I also wanted to keep that. Yeah. Much of your voice community has become sensitive to the perceived problem of we all sound like California Valley Girls. Yeah, people are definitely picking up on it. Otherwise known as the trans accent. I feel like the trans accent, there's a lot of things that get referred to as like the trans voice thing or a trans accent thing. Definitely the Valley Girl is one of those things. But also issues of hollowness are often one of those things. Usually like OPC being lacking. Or it's vowel warping creeping in, where like that E becomes present in all of the feminine voices. That like usually it's some combination of those things that's being referred to with trans accent, in my experience. Some years back, it was popular to teach specific prosodic patterns. Characters of coastal California. Yep, very true, very true. Which would then reinforce themselves within online speech communities. Key is to integrate yourself into your own local speech community. Yeah, 100%. If you want to sound British and like you want to really like actively move towards that, and you want to sound more British, break down what that means. Break down what British means. It's going to be to do with our vowels mostly for British people. Although like it depends on where you're going for British, because British is not a thing. There is a lot of British accents. Probably terrible example. But you get the idea. Yeah. If you want to just not have any of that change, none of what I've taught so far today, none of that will change your accent. Nothing that I teach changes your accent, because I work much more in just isolation. Usually that comes in like mimicry stuff, and a person you're mimicking happens to be American, and that's where that comes into it. That's why personally I don't use that teaching style. I'm not really a fan of it, because like I want you to be able to control the isolated variables on their own, so that you can choose the voice you want to have. Yeah, I don't want to go for mimicry. I want you to have like much greater levels of control than that. Yeah. Alrighty, any questions about any of this we're talking about here? It's a pretty simple concept. Just like whatever voice you want to have, you can have. Make sure you have an actual voice in mind, or like a handful of voices that have a handful of the things you want. Just like anything that you're trying to do, you have something to compare it against. Yeah. So you know when you've done it. And yeah, think about just like things, and this is just a handful. This is just for ones that like I've had students ask about these things. But like there's an infinite list, we could talk about Knerd, or we could talk about God, there's so many. We could talk about like pitch patterns, we could talk about speed, we could talk about all of these different things. It's because this list is just everything that isn't a gender thing, just all the rest of voice, we could talk about like vowel placement, so many different things, pronunciation, you get the idea. All of these things, if you want to change them, you can change them, because none of them will affect the gendered fit stuff. Yeah, and you should be thinking about like, what kind of voice do I want? How does it differ from the voice I have now, specifically? then start working on it. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? We have our last segment here now. Okay, before we do thank yous and all that sort of stuff. So by this stage, you've mastered all the different skills that create the gender perception of a voice. You've put them together, and you've made a guy voice or a girl voice or whatever. And then you've made it your own. You made your voice, the one you wanted. Okay, you got it. You got your dream voice. You can do it. You, mate, well done. You feminized your voice. You masculinized your androgenized your voice. You made the thing happen. You did it. Now it's a matter of making it a habit. And this is a bigger task than it seems. For most of you, what you probably are planning to do, and this is fine if this is your plan. This is what I did. This is what most people do. Is usually what they want to do is what they choose to do, what their preference is learning how to do it, and then maybe doing it at home and like in front of like their partner. Maybe they start doing it with some of their friends, maybe with their family, maybe eventually at work, maybe eventually full time. That's what I usually find people do. What I did, I went like the full thing with it. I learned how to do it, had that in my back pocket for like 6 months. Was waiting for my body to transition more, and then it was the technically I did it over like Christmas, so it would have been like the 20th or something of December 2024. Like basically I picked a day. I think it actually genuinely was the 20th, and from that day onwards I switched, and it was just that was that, and that was my full-time voice after that. And from that day onwards, I only ever used my old voice for teaching purposes. I never used it again and haven't ever used it again for my ordinary voice. And that's probably the hardest way you could do it. I've made it really hard for myself there. If you want the easiest way to do this, as you're learning things in real time, apply that to your voice in real time. But that does mean your voice is going to be sounding odd, and like all of what you're learning is going to be what you're doing in your voice all the time. And so there's going to be a period where your voice sounds not how you want it to sound until eventually it does. But if you do it that way, in front of everybody, you just immediately start making the changes to your voice, you won't have this habituation phase. You will just your voice will just change over time because you're changing it. Instead of like making a second voice and then switching to a second voice. But most of us make a second voice and then switch to a second voice. So here's what that's going to be like. To give you some like what to expect. When right now, if you've been making a second voice, you did that during practice. And when you're practicing, you're usually on your own. Sometimes you're recording. You often have this concept of I'm doing voice practice right now. You're doing drills. You're I don't know, maybe you're in a certain place usually, or a certain set of places. You have all these like associations, okay? And that's actually very relevant because we're people and we are not computers. Computers store files and then you just grab the file and that's that. People have brains, and brains, they store information more like a branching tree. So we kind of, to find that voice that we've created, our modified voice, we go down this branch of like voice change. And along the way, we have the branch of practice and the concept of practice. We have being on our own. We have maybe the places you usually practice. We have maybe the things you're usually doing when you practice. You have all of these different things that are always in common with you doing your modified voice. And then you try to use it in real life, in the wild, to actually talk to somebody. And that is a different tree, a different branch. There's a completely different branch, totally different section of a tree. So your brain is like trying to... Wait, how... what? It's like what you'll literally find happen at the very start is like you go to do it, and it's like you know how to do it, but you also just can't do it for some reason. Like you were just doing it, you just practiced it, and then you try to do it in front of somebody, and it's just gone, and you've no idea what's happening. And that's really normal, and it will happen to absolutely every single person that does this approach, which most people do, of like making a second voice and then switching over to it. And it happens to everybody, and it happened to me too. And it's really normal. It's just a quirk of how the brain works in like a literal, like biological manner. Okay, it's a biology thing. You have your, basically, your voice that you've created for modified voice is on the wrong branch. All of these like associations, being on your own, the concept of practice, being in certain locations, doing certain things, none of them are there where you try to do it in the wild. Suddenly it's not practice mode, it's you're in a conversation. There's this other person there. You're trying to, like, you're talking about stuff, and it's part of a conversation. It's not just like rambling of random nonsense, you know? All of these connections are gone and missing, and literally the only thing in common is that you're attempting to use your modified voice. And that's very confusing for your brain. What's happening is your brain is just struggling to like actually retrieve the information that you're like asking it to get. And it's completely fine, and you don't have to do anything. It'll go away on its own. This just fixes itself completely on its own. It's literally just your brain struggling to, like, because you're using different connections now. Just give it some time, keep going, and your brain will reorder itself, and it will remake those connections, and you'll be totally fine. It's stressful, and it's frustrating, because you know how to do this, but it's just gone somehow. And it comes back. Just keep at it, okay? I call it like the awkward phase, kind of like when you're growing your hair out. There's just an awkward phase, and you just got to get through it. And it will, for me, it was literally like 2 weeks. But bear in mind, for me, I went like straight into full time, like 100% of my voice usage. So it's going to be a quicker process, but it's going to be a much more intense process if you do it that way. If you're doing it, it'll take a bit longer if you're doing it like one group of people at a time. And like each one of those, you're going to have a new awkward phase, but each one of those is going to be less intense as the last. You can do it to shopkeepers and bus drivers, and that's it, lol. Are they the first people that you were doing it in front of? Maybe like, you know, you weren't going to see them again, so you're like, fuck it, we'll try it out. Yep, yeah, exactly. That was the first people you did it around, so that's where your brain made the connection of like, oh, shopkeepers and bus drivers. Okay, we'll make that connection. And that's how it did it, so now you can do it there. But then shopkeepers and bus drivers, you maybe try to speak to somebody else, and then not a shopkeeper, or then not a bus driver, so the brain doesn't like have that connection yet. As you make this more and more just your voice all the time, your brain makes a brand new connection. It just connects making sound, modified voice. It's just how you make sound. And that takes a while for it to become that level, and you really have to be doing it 100% of the time. At that point, you won't even need to think about it anymore. For me, that took like 3 or 4 months. It was hard to tell when it had actually happened, but like you realize afterwards, like, oh, wait a minute, I sneeze in this voice, I think in this voice, I dream in this voice. It's just my voice now. That's when it is. I have to think about it if I want to do my old voice, because this is my voice now. And yeah, it took about a few months, 3 or 4 months. It was kind of hard to tell when it actually made a switch, because like you don't know that you're not trying until you notice like, oh wait, I'm not trying. And all of this is just a matter of like, the more consistent you are, the more of your life you're doing this in, the more you're at that 100%, the more your voice will just becomes your voice. Yeah. And that's it. That's habituation. Keep at it. After like 6 months to a year, you won't know how to go back. If you literally just never use your old voice again, you'll forget how, and it'll go away. And you'll try to do it, and it'll sound ridiculous because you haven't practiced it. Um, I fucked up. Um, I don't have any masculizing students at the minute. Haven't for a while. Because there's a lot more feminizing students than masculizing, because obviously most masculizers just let testosterone do it. So I don't get as many, unfortunately. If you know someone who wants masculization lessons, tell them to get in touch, because fucking I don't get to play with masculizers often. But yeah, so I wasn't using my mask voice at all, and I'd also taken a break from these workshops. I took like a 6-month break, and over that period, I lost it. I lost my old voice. It's really annoying as a voice teacher, because you need to use that for demonstrations sometimes. It's like earlier I tried to demonstrate masculine voice and it didn't sound that good. I kind of I've spent this month working on getting it back, because I did a Pride event. It was like presenting. I needed to be able to demonstrate both. But even now, if my headphones are not, I can't do it. I need to piece it together bit by bit. This is kind of it now. I think this is roughly how I used to sound. It's definitely not quite there. I always mess up the OPE, or speaking from or. I always mess that bit up, and I often don't have enough weight in it, and it's never quite right. I definitely need to practice it more. But that's my point. After 6 months or so, it's hard to go. Genuinely, I have so much focus trying to use my unmodified voice. My old voice, which is I have to modify my voice to get to that, so yeah, if that's your goal, if you want it to just be gone, just stop using it. Make the switch, stay there, don't go back. Eventually you won't even know how to go back. Yeah. And yeah, that's habituation. Any questions? Testosterone will do some but not all of what a masculizer wants. That entirely depends on what a masculizer wants. It can do all of what they want. Everybody's mileage is very different. You can get people that just take tea and you get crazy masculine voices. And yeah, it super varies. I've got friends with a trans dude. And yeah, he got exactly what he wanted out of it. Most trans men I speak to got exactly what they wanted from testosterone. I'm sure different populations will differ though, because there's going to be a lot of cultural impact on that, or cultural influence on that. Yeah. Any other questions? Good at adding vocal weight and helping people reach lower pitches, but size and prosody usually needs to be trained. Prosody is entirely cultural. There's no actual gendered thing, so that's always going to be, if somebody wants to change your prosody, that's always going to need to be trained, because that's just a cultural thing. There's no biological back into it whatsoever, or anatomical influence. But no, size typically changes. So your larynx definitely will change if you're. In fact, speak to speak to some much later stage trans guys, and they'll tell you about a weird experience they went through where for a time the voice was quite uncomfortable to use, and usually it's because the vocal weight happens before the size change happens, and their vocal folds get thicker before their larynx has gotten bigger, and there's just not enough space, and it kind of hurts a little bit, and then that goes away again after the larynx has just gotten a bit bigger to accommodate for thicker vocal folds, larger vocal folds. Yeah, it definitely does impact size. Maybe speak to some people that have been that are 8 years in or something. Yeah, I say, one of my close friends is an example. Habituation is your main problem now. Keep progressing your voice as soon as you talk to someone. Yes, it's just a matter of really committing, really committing, 100%. Never, basically, don't give up. It will regress, but be looking for that to happen, and just keep trying to keep trying. And it's not even the it's not even the getting it right that's fixing it. It's the intent and the trying to that fixes it. because that when you're trying to do it, your brain is searching for the information, and so just as you do it more and more and more, that's what has it start to reform those connections. And so like you don't even have to succeed necessarily, but like just keep like assuming you can do the voice like outside of when you're practicing stuff, then just keep trying to use it outside of practice and in the wild, and it will just you don't have to do anything per se. Just like keep at it, and eventually your brain will fix it all. There's not like a conscious thing you gotta do other than just keep at it, basically. Yeah, super stressful, super annoying. Like genuinely, it was so frustrating for me. It was so like crushingly overwhelming for me. Genuinely, like have someone supporting you along the way because it can really fuck with you. But it doesn't last long. Especially if you are literally like switching over full time. But obviously, if you're switching over full time, that's going to be even more stressful because like anytime you try to use your voice, everything's fucked. But also it fixes much quicker. So, you know, if you can endure like a really, maybe if it takes longer for you, maybe like a really fucking intense month, it's just like fucking Jesus Christ. You'll come out of the other end really fucking happy with it. Yeah. And it will just get easier and easier and easier to the point where you realize you're not trying and it's actually just what's already there. Oh, you keep getting a Geordie accent. Okay, you need to review why that is. What are you doing that's bringing back Geordie accent? You have a conflation somewhere. Yeah, you check in with that. That could actually be what your issue is. Maybe something's not quite polished, and so that's like fucking with you when you try to use your voice, because it becomes much more obvious. So like play with the isolated variables. What's bringing back Geordie accent that you're not trying to do? Unless it's just you live in that area and it's coming in from like cultural influence. What's a Geordie accent? It is the accent of Newcastle in England. I think it's no, it is just Newcastle, isn't it? It might be Gateshead specifically. I don't think so though. Newcastle is the Geordie accent. I don't remember where the name comes from. Okay, let's keep going. So that's it. If you got to that stage, your voice is just your voice. Around Tyneside? Yeah, there you go. Tyneside is like River Tyne is the river, and Tyneside is like around where the bridge is, basically. But like big area because cities. Yeah. Okay. So if you've gotten past habituation, then it's just your voice now. That's it. You did it. That's it. That's the whole thing. So huge thank you for all of you for coming today. If you still have questions, ask your questions while I'm going over this section. Absolutely still ask your questions. If like you want to go back over a bit, we can go back over a bit. But yeah, thank you all for being here. Huge extra special thanks to everybody that supports her at the Ko-fi. We have our tier 1 supporters, Misty, Mihuggy, who is in chat right now. People say a big thank you to Huggy, please. Himori, Greyfroach Maria, and Vi. We also have our tier 2 supporters. Oh, this list needs updating. Tell you what, before we do this, I'm going to pop to the toilet again. I'll be right back. Get a couple of minutes break. And then we'll update this list in real time. I'll see you in just a second. Okay, be right back. Okay, hello, 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 hello. Yeah, thank you for being here. We are reached the conclusion of how you do this stuff. Thank you, it's been brilliant, and thank you to the supporters. I have to go. I will donate. Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Tiffany. I'll donate when I can, and we'll probably see you again as these sessions are incredibly useful. Bye. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Dang, I wish I'd seen. Hopefully, Tiffany knows how to get to Trans Network. Tiffany, if you're watching the VOD in the future, I suppose, if that's how you want to do it, check out the Discord. You'll probably find it really useful. We have a lot of this sort of stuff. Okay, so huge mega thank you, and let me. Whoa, I need to put my. I need to grab my list because this sheet needs updating. Because after the last workshop, right after it ended, we had a bunch of people. Or well, we had either like 1 or 2 people sign up, which is really good of them. But you can, hey, you can do it right now if you want. You could sign up to Ko-fi right now. You'll get added to the list right now. And there's also TTS on, which is fun. Might suggest putting the Discord invitation link in a programmer font. I don't know what that means. I'll be honest. I don't know what a programmer font is. Wherever you're watching from, though, there is a link. So it's either in the description right now, or it's nothing's changing, right? Yeah. It's either in the description of the YouTube video, or if you click on whatever Discord user, whether it's Zaras12, Zaras13, have a look in the bio, and you'll find a link there as well. If you want to just like click through a link. So wherever you are, there is something you can just click on. Oh, basically a font that's easier to read. Yeah, I know. It's such a pretty font, though. It's what all my stuff is in because it's pretty. But you're right. All right, let me get my list up. Can you please summarize the whole way? Chills to size to eification to fullness. That's a lot to summarize. Do your trills. A couple of weeks of those. Get really good at it. Do your weight. That's that level of busyness, like the for really, really heavy, or for really, really light. So pitch hills to get lighter, pitch troughs to get heavier. Then we want our size stuff. So remember, it's going to be over here, really, really big. Over here, really, really small. We're going to do those whispered words, okay? Either going smaller or going bigger. And then for the OBC, which is going to be our next step, we're getting like a little booster. So like get to like wherever you're able to get to. Make sure you're really good with size first, for core size. Then like wherever that ceiling is you hit, try whispering E speaking from E. And you might notice that you've moved past that ceiling. Or like or speaking from or. You pass that like floor, I guess. Crazy. And then like use that to get to like the biggest big or the small. And that'll get you to the voice you want. And then fullness is just going to be like, if you notice that you sound cartoonish, there's probably like one of these, the variables are just like, you can do the different things, you just better out of sync. So you need to like add to one, or like add more size, or add less size, or add more weight, or take less weight. You just need to like play with like how much of each thing you're doing in relation to each other, and that'll get you your full sound. Okay, I did manage to summarize all that. Was that a decent summarization? Hopefully it was. Okay. Where's my... Here we go. Okay, let's update this list in real time. So, I can get it from the membership screen. Here we go. Members. Nice. It was Agnes that joined. Yes. Oh, and Emma joined, and she never got added to the list. I was not aware. I'm so sorry, Emma. Or unless she's only just joined. Okay. All So let's have a little go through all these. All right, so we have Misty. I mean, double check any new tier ones I don't know about. Misty, Mihuggy, Himori, we have Graveyard Maria, and we have Vi. Thank you so much to those people for supporting us. Huge thank you. Then we have our amazing tier 2 supporters. Okay, we have Agnes getting added to the list. Ooh. I want that. Agnes. Thank you, Agnes, for last week. Sign up for membership. So we have Lanmisa, Ona, Leah, Liv, and Agnes. Huge thank you to our tier supporters. And a massive thank you. Whoa, we got a new tier 3 supporter as well. Crazy. Yuna, you are getting added to this list. How very lovely. Thank you so much, Yuna. So we have our tier 3 supporters. We have Beth, Raya, Laurie. We have Yuna. And we also have Emma. So thank you, huge, massive thank yous to those people. Okay? That is all our people. Okay? Now for everybody on this list that was donated via a membership, all of their memberships have been added into our trans youth, low-income youth fund to supply people from 25 and under that can't afford their own voice lessons, and they don't have income, providing them with free voice lessons so that they can still have their voice change. Because we know that especially for young people, it's hard to get into full-time employment when you're that young, and incomes can be really low, and if people are in like a more fucked situation, it can just be fucked, and like transition can already be so expensive. Adding the task of voice work to that, which for most people it's just a necessity, it just becomes too much. They just can't afford it all. They can't spin all those plates, especially at that age. So that's why we have our fund. So huge thank you to everybody in this list, because all your memberships have been added into that fund this month, and they've been doubled up. I'm matching all of our membership donations. So massive thank you to those people. They are how we have helped bring this number somewhere below me up to where it is. So massive thank you. And if you want to be a part of it, head over to Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/transnetwork. All donations are going into the fund, into the fundraiser, and all memberships are going in, and I'm doubling them. So if you sign up for the tier 3 to do that £25 membership donation, then I'll put 50 into the kitty, so huge, massive thank you to everybody on this list. Huge thank you. So if you donate $1 million, Zara's broke. Basically, yeah, genuinely, if you sign $1 million, it's going straight into a key. If you find some way, I guess you just have to make a lot of, what's the highest tier? Tier 5, I think. If you just make a lot of tier 5 accounts, I think I've already closed the code. I think it's tier 5 is like 100. If you make a lot of tier 5s, hey, I'm making out a big old kitty. I will match that, okay? Hells yeah. Yeah, freaking charity, man. I'll go broke for charity. Fuck yeah. Yeah, huge thank you to these people. And let's raise some money for Pride. Fuck yeah. Happy Pride, everybody. All right, so I'm teaching very soon. So I'm not going to be doing the Q&A section today. I know that is 2 in a row where I've skipped it. I know people really get a lot of value from it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say like 90%, 10% chance that I'm not going to be able to. I'll say a 90% chance, 90% certainty. Friday, what's a good time? We'll say 2 o'clock BST. Friday, 2 o'clock BST, I will do a drop-in session. Basically just this open Q&A section. Come back on Friday and we'll do it then. Okay? And I won't even set an end time to it. I'll just see you where it takes us. Okay? So 2 o'clock Friday, BST. Let's do a drop-in session. Yeah? Hells yeah. All right, in that case, we're going to be finishing up here, unless you have any last questions to sneak in. That does not mean you have to go. If you'd like to, stick around, help each other with your voices. I know, Beth, are you sticking around? I feel like I saw your message for a moment and then it disappeared. Yeah, we have our trainee teacher, who is an ex-student of mine. It's really cool that she's moving towards being a teacher. That's fucking sick. So if you head over to Trans Network now, people in Trans Voice, if you head over to Trans Network, it sounds like she's sticking around a bit to help people out. Yeah, it's literally that Beth that you have seen in chat. Yeah, trainee teacher, come get advice from her. And if you're looking for the server, click on the Zara's one too. In my bio, there's a server link there. Yeah. Is there anything else I'm supposed to... Oh, I should do the plugs. We did the Ko-fi one. We also have YouTube. You do the YouTube things if you'd like to do YouTube things. This is a VOD that is being created right now. Like we're live on YouTube, and the VOD will stay up. So if you want to like go back over any of this and rewatch a segment, you can totally do that. It'll be there as soon as this is finished. It's there now. It will stay there. And you can watch any of the past workshops as well. They just stick around. So definitely do that if you want to do that. Feel free to like the video, share it with your friends. You can comment if you want to comment. That's always good for the algorithm. Comment any questions if you have questions like after the fact. Subscribe if you want to have more of that in your feed. We've got public lessons, we've got workshops, we've got a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. Okay. What else we got? I'm sure there's another thing. Oh yeah, I teach lessons. Obviously, that's like the main thing. If you would like lessons with me, prices are like about to go up. So for new students, it'll be £50 a lesson. Not quite organized it yet. It's probably happening very soon though. So probably by the time you get to it, it'll be £50. But if you get it right now, it'll be at 35. But yeah. I teach private lessons and I teach public lessons. So if you want to get lessons from me, then head over to my Discord server. There's a little there's a channel where you can open up a ticket, and that will get you in touch with me, and we'll book in lessons. Yeah. Also, join the Discord server. We have so much cool stuff going on now. We have our clip feedback section. So if you want, it's totally free. You just get some feedback on like a little clip. I'll get to it as soon as I can. Obviously, it is a free thing, so I'm not always quick with it. But as soon as I'm able to, I'll get to your clip. Or you can chat about voice in the voice discussion area, the theory area. We've got a research area. It's pretty cool. We also have D&D. One of our community members just asked if they could just run a D&D campaign in the server. And I was like, of course you can. So yeah, we have social events. If you want to like start your own thing like that, you totally can. But yeah, we have a community D&D group in there. And I'm pretty sure they're looking for more people. So like definitely come by for that. D&D genuinely is probably one of the best ways you can practice. Unironically, like really, D&D is good for voice training. It's so good for voice training. I super encourage you to play D&D. Genuinely, it's like such an amazing way to train. It really helps with that fun factor as well. So yeah, genuinely, like even if you're not doing it for any reason, you don't care about D&D, join the D&D group purely for an environment to practice in, around other people who are also working on their voice. Like it's such a brilliant opportunity. And it's fun and it's free and it's just a community thing that formed organically. It's really cute and I really love it. Okay, I think that's all the things. If I missed something I'm supposed to plug, somebody type it away and tell me, Zara, shout this out. But otherwise, thank you all so, so much for being here. And I think we'll be finishing off there. People in Trans Voice, as I was saying earlier, if you head over to Trans Network now, you can click on Zara's one too, and you'll be able to follow through. The link is in my bio. Our resident trainee teacher, Beth, one of my previous students, and I'm very proud of her for wanting to be a voice teacher. That's super cool, Beth. She's going to stick around and help people out for a little bit. So yeah, head over there to get some advice from her. All right. Goodbye, YouTube. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. All right.
Hello, everyone. I will
Bye.